Voting rights compromise. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the conversation. I'm David Schuster. It does appear now that Democrats in Congress, both progressives and centrists, have coalesced around some sort of voting rights bill that essentially gets rid of some of the more contentious elements from the original bill, including restructuring the Federal Election Commission. Instead, the focus will now be largely on simply making sure there is ballot access. Let's get reaction to this. Tiffany Muller is president of the anti-corruption group and Citizens United. Tiffany, thanks for joining us. What's your reaction to this compromise that seems to be emerging?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me on today. And we're really thrilled about this bill. I mean, it does all of the major things that we need to address to help protect our democracy. So it makes sure that everyone's freedom to vote is protected and that no matter where you live, no matter who you are, you can access the ballot box. Number two, it ends partisan gerrymandering so that voters are choosing their elected officials and not the other way around. And it ends dark money in politics so that billionaires can no longer buy our elections. So we know we are very happy about this compromise. We're happy that we have a unanimous support among the Senate Democrats, and we're ready to get this bill passed.
Some of the items include 15 days of consecutive voting, ensuring that all voters can request to vote by mail, establish some new automatic voter registration, and have election day become a national holiday. Of these, which in your estimation is the toughest sell for critics of voting rights legislation?
Well, none of these should be a tough sell. These are all common sense solutions that have broad support among the American people. Democrats, Republicans, Independents all support these issues and have seen them implemented in states from Utah to Arizona to Colorado and West Virginia, since we're I'm sure going to talk about that. The Senator Manchin helped lead this compromise. So this has broad bipartisan support across the country. And all it does is make it easier to vote and protect the freedom to the ballot box.
Now, what's not in it, as we said, restructuring the Federal Election Commission. What is it that needs to be restructured about the Federal Election Commission? And if you don't do that, how big a setback is it?
Well, look, right now the Federal Election Commission has a 6% commission that too often ties along party lines, a 3-3 deadlock that doesn't allow anything to be done. So even in blatant cases where it is clear that someone's violated the law, that law isn't being enforced. So while the restructuring the commission from 6 commissioners down to 5, which is something that we really wanted to see, is no longer in this bill, what is in this bill is actually increasing the authority of the General Counsel and making sure that we are actually giving the Federal Elections Commission more authority to enforce the law as it's written.
You mentioned West Virginia Democratic Senator Joe Manchin, a centrist by most accounts and something of a thorn in the side to the Biden administration and certainly a lot of progressives on countless issues. How significant is his support for this compromise, and were you surprised by it?
Well, Senator Manchin's a former Secretary of State and former governor who has long cared about these issues. And he actually helped lead the efforts to find this compromise over the August recess. So what it shows is that, again, from Democrats to Republicans to Independents, these are common sense solutions, and we can find unanimous support among Democrats. Right now, the problem is the Republican obstruction that we're seeing in the Republican caucus from Senator Mitch McConnell and his allies. So we need to make sure that we do whatever it takes to get this bill passed so that we can stop the attacks that we're seeing across the country on our democracy.
And to be clear, will it require 60 votes simply to bring up a vote because of how this bill is structured? In other words, you'll need 9 Republicans?
Well, currently that is where we're at, is that it would require 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. And we have seen Republicans already filibuster these bills twice, right? And actually have no one in the Republican caucus support it. But here's the thing. The filibuster has been reformed many times throughout the years, including for things like being able to pass corporate tax cuts that the Republicans passed a few years ago, or executive nominations or Supreme Court justices. Surely, if it only takes a simple majority of the Senate to give away $2 trillion in tax cuts to corporations and the wealthiest individuals in America, surely we can make it to where it only takes a simple majority to protect the foundations of our democracy.
So it sounds like you're saying that if Democrats cannot get the 9 Republicans to come along and they can't break the 60 vote threshold and there is a filibuster, that it sounds like you're suggesting that at that point, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, all the other Democrats need to go along with a filibuster carve out, essentially eliminating the filibuster for this particular legislation.
Senator Manchin himself has said that inaction is not an option. And what we're seeing across the country right now shows how urgent this issue really is. So there's been 400 bills introduced in state legislatures that would roll back voting rights. We're seeing gerrymandered maps coming out every week right now that would just take Republicans and put them more in the majority. And so we know that the filibuster has been changed and has used exceptions 160 times in the last 20 years. And so we know that we can carve out an exception and make sure that we can figure out a way to get this bill passed. It is that important. We have to do it.
Tiffany, some Americans, of course, may be very familiar with some of the state rollbacks, particularly, for example, not allowing you to bring water or refreshments to somebody who's waiting in a lengthy voting line. Is there anything in this federal legislation that would address that?
It does, actually. The Freedom to Vote Act says that you cannot criminalize taking food or water to people who are waiting in line. Look, it is voter suppression, particularly aimed at Black and brown communities, that has created those long lines in so many places throughout the country, where we see 12-hour lines of people in Atlanta, Georgia, waiting to vote. And the fact that what they have now tried to do is make waiting in that line even more uncomfortable or even dangerous for people waiting in that line shows that the cruelty really is the point. So this bill actually would make sure that no states can criminalize handing out food or water to people who are waiting in line.
And given the clashes between some of these state laws and this federal legislation, if it passes, any fears in terms of the court battle that would ensue, given that the Constitution does seem to give a lot of power to states in terms of how they conduct their elections?
But the courts have found throughout the years that Congress has the right to set standards for federal elections. And that is what this does. This puts national standards in place so that whether you live in Maine or West Virginia or Arizona or wherever you live, whoever you are, whatever race you are allowed to have equal access to the ballot box. That's what this is about. It really is that common sense. It's making sure that we're giving the power back to the people and that their voices and their votes are heard.
Tiffany, would you be open to having this legislation open to Republican amendments? And the reason being, of course, is that some Republicans say, hey, they have some ideas on how to crack down on what they see as potential fraud, making it perhaps putting more of a burden on people to prove who they say they are. Is that the sort of thing that you think should be welcome in this legislation?
Look, I think that first of all, there have already been Republican amendments incorporated and Republican ideas incorporated into this bill. During the markup in the Senate Rules Committee, there were, I think, 9 different Republican amendments that were actually incorporated into this bill. But here's the other thing we're seeing. We're not seeing Republicans come to the table to negotiate in good faith. We're seeing an all-out partisan attack on the right to vote and on redistricting across the country, all being fueled by dark money special interests. And it's all about who gets to vote and how Republicans right now think that they are going to win elections. We saw that same dark money and these same special interests fuel the big lie prior to the 2020 election and lead to the January 6th insurrection. So this is not Republicans coming to the table in good faith to negotiate this. This is an all-out attack on our democracy by one party, and Democrats must stand up and act and pass this bill to protect it.
And the strategy behind that attack now, and we saw before the California recall, was to claim fraud even before the election has happened. Would it help Democrats and the American people to provide some measures in this legislation that provides for more transparency, even more transparency in terms of the tabulation and how tabulation systems are conducted, so that people who don't understand the system or worry, okay, I want to make sure these votes are being counted the right way, that they get some satisfaction, some confidence in this as well?
There are some really great election security measures in this bill. Everything from actual real audits to making sure that we have paper ballots so that voters can verify how they voted and that their vote is going to count the right way, to cybersecurity, because we've obviously seen foreign governments and foreign actors trying to influence our elections. So election security is a very real threat. You know what else this bill does? It also cracks down on the online misinformation and disinformation that right now Republicans are specializing in, and that we have to crack down on in order to restore faith and trust in our government.
Tiffany, real quickly in the final seconds we have you, are you very optimistic that this will get through?
I actually am really optimistic that we're going to be able to get this done. And for any of your viewers who want to get involved and raise their voices, you can go to actforthepeople.com, actforthepeople.com, and you can get connected to your senators and tell them to pass this bill.
Tiffany Muller, she's the president of the anti-corruption group and Citizens United. Tiffany, thanks for joining us and explaining some of this to us, and good luck to you and your organization as this legislation winds its way through Congress. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
We are onto something that is going to be amazing. But what we need is your help.
The number one problem is there's too much power in too few hands.
Every single problem that we have can be traced back to dark money.
They take large donors, they serve large donors.
So these handful of gatekeepers try to dictate everything.
Like all of you already know, they don't work for you, they work for their donors. So fire them and hire people who will only work for you, that say no corporate PAC money.
We are going to change the way we elect candidates in this country.
Uncorrupted Democrats, we're going to fight for the issues and win on policy.
This is incredibly personal. We need free healthcare for everyone.
We're fighting for $15 minimum wage, single payer healthcare, debt-free college, and we are going to get money out of politics once and for all.
I've taken a public pledge not to accept any corporate money.
Because the last thing we're going to do is go into another presidential election and run a corporatist against a populist candidate.
At some point, the buck needs to stop, and it's gonna stop with us. It's gonna stop with Justice Democrats.
So who are we?
People who do not take corporate PAC money.
We're relying on small donors.
99.9% of our contributions came from people.
You're a Justice Democrat, so you don't take any corporate PAC money.
I'm not influenced by money.
As a Justice Democrat, I made that pledge.
Not a penny. Absolutely not.
I will go to Congress unbossed and unbought.
We try to create a government which works for all of us.
That is what America's about, and that's what a representative democracy should be about.
We are just getting warmed up here.
Vote for uncorrupted Democrats. The fight starts now, it starts today, and it starts with you.
I've been honest with him. Like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you. Okay. Now you could also choose if you want to do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change. And if you want to know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees. Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No.
today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Welcome back to the conversation. I'm David Schuster. By now, most of you have already heard about ivermectin. It's that horse deworming drug that a lot of personalities on Fox News have been pushing to people in terms of treatment of COVID-19. But there are some problems with this, never mind that it's for horses. And there's also a story in all this that seems to have been missed. So here to talk about all of this is Angelo Carusone. He's the president and CEO of Media Matters. Angelo, before we get to the YouTube issue and all this, I want to ask you, what's been your reaction to seeing Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and the rest pushing ivermectin?
I mean, it basically is like, it's exactly what I would have expected, which is that they'll do absolutely anything to convince their audiences that COVID is not that big of a deal, that there's some kind of grand conspiracy to exploit COVID in order for liberals and the media and Democrats to exert control over them, and that therefore they should, ignore the public health responses and instead turn to all these fads or these cures or nothing at all. And so I think it's part of the course. I'm pretty confident that Tucker Carlson is not shooting himself full of ivermectin, and neither is Laura Ingraham, and that they're very comfortable being vaccinated. And so it's expected, I mean, they were canceling birthday parties and events at the same time that they were telling people to book cruises last year, right at the beginning of the pandemic start. And this is basically just, to me, a continuation of the trend that they've been doing the whole way.
The impact of Fox News is that apparently at some livestock feed stores, there's been a run on ivermectin because that's in this sort of this horse dewormer, although the amount of ivermectin in that is extremely concentrated and far more dangerous than, say, if you had ivermectin given to you in a dosage you would get from a doctor, even though most doctors would tell you it just doesn't do anything. But in any case, Angelo, you pointed out Media Matters has found that, YouTube still has a lot of videos about ivermectin up there. How come?
That's the question. I mean, I think that, to me, one of the biggest flashpoints is it wasn't that long ago that they were patting themselves on the back because they took down a video from Ron Johnson that was promoting the use of the drug or sort of giving some misinformation about it. They were using that as an example of how they consistently enforce their policies and as a illustration of how effective they've been. But in reality, if you just do a really basic search and then you start to dig in a little bit, what you'll find is tons of videos that not just promote ivermectin as a cure and a way to treat COVID, but to actually take it prophylactically, to get ahead of it, because it can actually make you immune to COVID. And then the third thing is a whole range of videos about how ivermectin is safer to use than, say, the common shampoos that you would use if you had, say, head lice, for instance, that it's such a common thing. And so it's an avalanche of misinformation. YouTube has not enforced any of the rules against these videos, in large part because they're pretty well-established networks. And when you take them down, they get critiqued. And they also lose views and engagement. And they're having a big battle with TikTok right now, and they don't want to lose any more minutes spent on YouTube. That's the dirty secret.
How has YouTube responded to the criticism?
The one thing about YouTube in comparison to others is that they're the worst. At least Facebook will performatively start to engage with some of the content that they say is against their own rules. They may enforce it against a fraction, even a substantial fraction of the videos that researchers or third parties bring to their attention. And in some cases, they've been pretty good about being proactive about it. YouTube, on the other hand, basically ignores it. They may take down one. So if you give them 15 or 20 videos that have had several 100,000, in some cases millions of views, they may remove one that is disconnected from, say, an account that has a really large subscription base. So maybe it was a video that got randomly posted from one of those burner accounts that then gets, who cares if it gets taken down, right? Because they're not losing subscribers or anything, and people clone them. So that's what they'll do. They took down one video that was disconnected from a larger account, but for the most part, they've left up all the others. And that, I think, is, these videos some of them are pretty compelling in the sense that they masquerade as medical experts or, people that have public health backgrounds, and in fact, they're not actually doctors at all. but they may have a PhD in literature, but they use that doctor moniker, or they may be chiropractors, but they'll they'll present it as if they're giving scientific research. So they're giving it the color and credibility of someone in the medical field actually promoting the use of this drug.
I wonder if there's any room for nuance with YouTube, and here's why. I was talking to a pulmonologist the other day about ivermectin, and he said, look, if ivermectin is prescribed in the normal medical fashion, in other words, by a doctor, it doesn't do anything for you in terms of treatment COVID or protecting, but it doesn't do any harm. The harm comes if you're taking it in the horse paste or in the dosages, the concentrated dosages you would get for livestock. So is it possible for YouTube to draw that distinction and say, okay, if somebody wants to put a video up about a drug that is really not doing anything, so be it. It's where they start prescribing or recommending people take a livestock feed. That's where we should draw the line.
Yeah, I think that'd be totally fair. I think if we were going to criticize YouTube for allowing anyone to really talk about the drug, especially how it's prescribed, I think that would be kind of irrational of us, right? And unfairly reactionary. But if you're out there, one, not drawing a distinction at all, and not even flagging that there's a difference, which is an important thing for most people to know. If you're watching a YouTube explainer about the use of ivermectin in COVID, and you never once mention that the ivermectin you see at your local shelf is not the ivermectin that a doctor would give, say, somebody that was being treated for correctly, that's a pretty big piece of information that you'd want to know, especially since they're spelled the same. There's no special way to know the difference. The other thing is a lot of this content will also give people their own personal way of taking these off-the-shelf drugs for farm animals and how you can dose yourself to get, say, a human-sized dose of it for COVID treatment. And that's where it actually starts to get much more explicit and dangerous, right? Because you're telling people how to use something that is clearly not for that. And I think most of the content is the latter. It's not somebody just talking about the drug generically. I think that would be okay.
I've always liked to tell friends and sort of joke around, but there's an element of seriousness to it that with Media Matters, you guys watch Fox News, so the rest of us don't have to. Is there something to be said about simply saying, okay, let YouTube put whatever they want and leave it to organizations like yours or to medical science organizations to do the critiques of these videos and not go down the road of trying to decide what is misinformation and what is not?
Yes, I think there's definitely something to that. And by and large, that would be an acceptable thing. I think the important thing to consider here is when the platforms start to draw and enforce these actions. To me, the bigger question becomes, okay, you've now set a policy. How are you enforcing it? And we just found out this week, right, that Facebook has a secret list and for years was using internally of influencers that they considered to be above or accepted from enforcing any of their terms of service against. Most of those influencers are right-wingers, right? They don't give the same benefit to left-leaning influencers or others, right? It was predominantly right-wing influencers. So when you set a policy and then you don't start to enforce that policy consistency, I think that's where, say, a research organization like Media Matters should start to ring the bell. Because that's an alarm bell. What it means is that, one, that means there's probably almost always is there a larger discrepancy in their enforcement. And it also shows that they're spinning some BS, right? Some PR speak. And to me, the part that elicited this research followed them going out there and taking down one ivermectin video and saying, here's our bright line. When in fact, give us all the credit, we're doing our part, now leave us alone. And in fact, what it turned out to be the case was PR relations more than, say, an actual consistent policy. And that matters to me. I'd rather, even if they don't take it down, there's all kinds of things that you can do in terms of how the algorithm weights it, how you're recommending the videos. That's really worries me, is when they start to recommend that kind of content to individuals that may be susceptible to it. So I'm sensitive to the free speech questions and also like the market. I think it's okay to have these fights, but I also think it's important for us to hold individuals and these platforms to account when they want credit for something that they're not actually doing. And then separately, to really make it clear that I think the bigger threat about these videos being on the platform isn't just that they're there, it's that the entire power of YouTube's recommendation engine is actually helping connect that specific content with people really susceptible to it.
Well, to me, and that's a great point, because never mind the hypocrisy at YouTube and Facebook over their different sort of ways of their different standards. But a lot of people don't realize that there are algorithms that these organizations have in terms of what videos they push, which videos they promote. Is it your sense that the algorithms are shifting now towards favoring conservative videos and criticizing or demonetizing or withdrawing democratic videos? And what's the reason that a Facebook or YouTube would go in that direction?
It's interesting. We started to see this trend. There's always been a sense of it, but we started to find evidence of this trend leading up to the election. In fact, in the months before election day, we did an analysis of the top 100 videos just about voting on YouTube. And not only were the majority of those videos from right-leaning platforms, even though left-leaning videos were producing content, they just weren't getting the same reach and engagement. There was about half of the right-leaning videos contained explicit misinformation about voting that violated YouTube's terms of service. And that alone should mean that it shouldn't be in the top 100 or top 10. And so I think it really gets back to what I was referencing earlier, which is, are you enforcing these policies consistency against left and right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of this is about that the right works the refs. They scream and yell a lot louder. And this is something we saw in newsrooms in the 90s. And I think we're seeing this sort of the same kind of duck and cover and inoculating yourself against right-wing blowback at these platforms. And I think that's honestly a really big part of it.
Angelo Carusone, he's the president and CEO of Media Matters. Angelo, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's Cenk Uygur, Ana Kasparian with you guys. All right, look, big show as always. Fun, disaster. It's all, rolled up into a fun little ball here on TYT. And we'll roll it down the alley and see what happens.
All right, okay.
And you don't really roll it up the alley, maybe down the lane. But anyways, okay.
He's in a mood.
I'm in a mood. I'm in a mood, guys. So you never know what could happen here. At any moment, anger could break out, often does.
Yeah.
But for now, we're in an excellent mood. All right, Casper.
Well, the people who should be a little worried and angered today are the FBI. Not a good day for the FBI. So, FBI Director Christopher Wray is facing scrutiny over how the agency handled its investigation into the alleged sexual misconduct of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Now, of course, this investigation took place prior to Kavanaugh's confirmation. It was supposed to be a week-long investigation, but it was only 4 days long, and we have some new reporting indicating that there were some pretty important leads or tips that the FBI refused to even look into. So The Guardian did some pretty good reporting on this, and they write that at the heart of the new questions that Christopher Wray will face later this week when he testifies before the Senate Judiciary Committee is a 2010 memorandum of understanding that the FBI has recently said considered the agency's ability to conduct any further investigations or allegations of misconduct limited, right? So constrained, my bad. So it constrained their ability to do what they're literally paid to do, which is investigate these types of allegations and other threats. Now, the FBI was called to investigate, again, these allegations that were brought forth by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. There was also another accusation by another woman, and then turns out that when they started doing this investigation, they started getting thousands of tips that they didn't even bother looking into. The FBI said that in its letter to two senators, Sheldon Whitehouse and Christopher Coons, that the FBI did not have the authority under the 2010 MOU at the time to unilaterally conduct further investigative activity absent instructions from the requesting entity. In other words, the FBI has said it would have required explicit instructions from the Trump White House to conduct further investigation under the existing 2010 guidelines on how such investigations ought to be conducted. So The Guardian's like, oh, okay, so you're saying that this 2010 MOU, okay, memorandum of understanding, is what limited you, that you had no choice, that your hands were tied. And so there was a Freedom of Information Act request, and through that request, The Guardian was able to obtain the details of that MOU, and here's what we know. An examination of the 2010 MOU does not make explicitly clear that the FBI was restricted in terms of how it would conduct its investigation. The MOU also does not explicitly state that the White House had the power to set the process parameters on any investigation. So this MOU does not, or does seem to suggest that the White House had some authority to limit the FBI investigation, but not to the extent that the FBI is claiming, okay? And so just to give you an idea, again, they wrapped up their investigation in 4 days, right? And they didn't look into a number of tips. About 4,500 tips came in. They didn't even bother to interview Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. They didn't bother to interview Brett Kavanaugh. Clearly, there were issues with this investigation.
Yeah, no, I think it's way worse than that, because that justification makes no sense at all, guys. Just think about it. Congress says, hey, go investigate Kavanaugh and see if he did this thing to Christine Blasey Ford. The FBI says, okay, we have a mandate to investigate it, but because of vague rules, we think it means that we cannot investigate the main people involved. Well, that makes no sense at all. Then what did Congress ask you to investigate? If you're not supposed to investigate Kavanaugh, you're not supposed to talk to him. What do you think they authorized?
Exactly.
If you're not allowed to talk to, in your opinion, Christine Blasey Ford, and you never shared that, by the way, we found out about it later, but at the time of the investigation, they were pretending like they were doing the most thorough investigation anybody's ever seen. Oh my God, we rolled up our sleeves, we looked into it, and it turns out poor guy didn't do anything wrong, right? But wait a minute, you didn't even talk to him or the victim. what did you think they authorized? That should be asked very, very clearly. But the problem is, in Washington, you're never gonna get a clear answer. So my point, guys, is there's no way in the world that if you were an honest actor, you wouldn't at least go back to Congress, the White House, or the public and say, hey, they told us to investigate, then they told us not to talk to the two main people involved. That doesn't make any sense. We need help here in figuring out what to do. That is a bare minimum you would do if you're an honest actor. So, and this is not a situation where it's negligence. Like in the Larry Nassar case we're gonna talk about later in the show, I don't know if the FBI guy just was the laziest person on earth or was actively wanting to cover up sexual harassment for some weird reason, right?
Sexual
in this
assault.
case, sexual molestation, assault, you name it, right? But in this case, negligence doesn't make any sense. They actively chose not to do a real investigation.
Yep.
So all the right wingers, by the way, they're constantly talking about deep state. Where are you at? Where are you at? Because this is the FBI saying, I don't mind if that guy that's, by the way, they're right wingers. I know Trump gets at Christopher Wray and everybody else involved in the government if they don't all kiss his ass at every moment of the day. But remember, they're actually right wingers.
Yeah.
So right. Wray comes in and goes, oh well, a guy wound up maybe attempted rape of a woman. What am I gonna do? Look into that because Congress told me to? No, I'm gonna bury it. I'm gonna help the right winger get on the Supreme Court no matter what happens. No, a lot of people have to get fired over the fact that they absolutely positively lied and didn't do this investigation on purpose, and including, by the way, a key star witness.
Yes.
An eyewitness says, yeah, I saw one of the allegations, not about Ford, but about one of the other women.
Yes.
And they're like, we don't care. In fact, we care so much, we don't want you to tell us the story.
Let me give the details on that.
She's gonna give you the details.
Yeah, just relax for a second, okay? So that's actually a really important detail to the story because Wray is likely to face scrutiny on why information that was specific to the allegations of sexual misconduct was not fully explored, including evidence that was reportedly offered to investigators by an alleged witness. A witness named Max Steyer, an attorney and former classmate of Ramirez. That was another woman who had made accusations against Kavanaugh, who reportedly notified senators that he had witnessed an event similar to the one recounted by Ramirez, right? So why was that not looked into? By the way, the Ramirez that we're talking about here is Deborah Ramirez. She was a classmate over at Yale. She claimed that Brett Kavanaugh had exposed himself to her. And so we have a witness claiming, I saw him do something similar to another person. And why wasn't that person interviewed?
So we need to know who at the FBI made the decision that we're going to do a sham investigation, that the allegations of sexual assault, we're going to bury them because we don't care. We're gonna make a political decision because we want this right winger on the Supreme Court. And so we're not going to do the investigation that we were told that we must do. How do you not find that person? How do you not fire that person? By the way, it looks like it's not just one person. Looks like the whole organization on purpose chose not to do their job. It's indisputable. Even if you're talking to a right winger, do you think that they did a real investigation if they didn't talk to Blasey Ford or the witness or Kavanaugh? You know they didn't do a real investigation. In fact, you're chuckling about it right now. Going, I know, isn't it great that they put the alleged rapist on the court without doing an investigation? Now that's the deep state I used to know and love, right? That's what right wingers are thinking. But no one is thinking that was a real investigation. It's not possible to think that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, two negative FBI stories in a row. This one about the Larry Nassar case. So. The Senate Judiciary Committee held a hearing to both listen to the testimony of Olympic gymnasts who had been victims of the sexual misconduct of USA gymnast Dr. Larry Nassar, and also the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray. Now, why is the FBI involved in this? Well, it turns out that after several Olympians had told FBI officials about what Larry Nassar had done to them, they didn't take any action. In some cases, it took 17 months for them to even investigate the claims. The first half of Wednesday's hearing featured emotional testimony by 4 elite gymnasts, Simone Biles, Michaela Maroney, Allie Reisman, and also Maggie Nichols, who said Nassar sexually abused them under the guise of medical treatment during his time as a USA gymnastics doctor. We have a video showing you some of their testimony. Let's take a quick look at that.
Being here today is taking everything I have.
Tearfully opening up on Capitol Hill about the abuse they faced by former team doctor Larry Nassar.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse.
Olympian Simone Biles was one of 4 athletes who painstakingly described being molested by Nassar while competing at the highest level.
I was naked, completely alone, with him on top of me, molesting me for hours.
Gold medalist Michaela Maroney says when she told an FBI investigator what happened, she was met with silence.
After that minute of silence, he asked, "Is that all?" Those words in itself was one of the worst moments of this entire process for me.
Her case was one of the first to be referred to the FBI in July 2015, but the Bureau failed to properly investigate, according to an internal Justice Department report, waiting more than a year before opening a formal probe. By then, approximately 70 other young athletes had been assaulted by Nassar, who was later convicted.
The FBI and others within both USAG and USOPC knew that Nassar molested children and did nothing to restrict his access.
No, it's absolutely disgusting. I want to give you guys more details about what the women testified about. Maroney recalled speaking with the FBI in the summer of 2015 and providing extreme detail about Nassar's abuse during a nearly 3-hour phone interview. So she's reliving this in a 3-hour-long phone interview. But the Bureau failed to proceed with an investigation into his alleged misconduct until more than a year later, as revealed by a blistering Inspector General's report in July. Maroney said that her interview with the Bureau was not even documented until 17 months later, and she accused the FBI of making entirely false claims about what she told them, which you can expect if they're not gonna document it after that lengthy phone interview happens, right? If they're gonna wait 17 months to document it, of course they're gonna get what she said to them wrong. And she was livid about it. You know, I was watching the hearing as it was happening live, and it was absolutely heartbreaking because here is, an intelligence agency, a law enforcement agency on a federal level that's supposed to be keeping Americans safe. And in this case, I mean, Jake, you mentioned earlier, you don't know if it's negligence or if it was a cover up. I don't know how it could be anything other than a cover up, to be honest with you. How do you hear this kind of testimony? How do you hear these types of cases and just sit on it for 17 months?
Right, so I don't know, and there's one thing I think they should further investigate, which the Inspector General has asked them to do, I believe. So let me explain. So there's 2 possibilities. The possibility that's lower, less likely, as Anna points out, is, and this does happen from time to time in all places of work, including the FBI. People are of extreme laziness, and they just take a report and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be hard to do this case, and it involves powerful people. I'll just shelve it," right? And you think, how could be that callous? You'd be shocked. I mean, there's like police that don't go and help people who are being killed, and we can go on and on. Doctors who do terrible things. So there's craziness and laziness in the world. So that's a possibility. But it does appear that a higher likelihood is this person, or 2 people in particular, chose not to pursue this, which then leads to the bigger question: why? What a weird thing that you hear this harrowing testimony of molestation of young girls and sexual assault, and you think, let me help the guy cover that up. Well, that's a very curious choice. So that makes me think, is there something in your life where that leads you to have sympathy for that guy? So so they've been fired, but they should investigate further, and so
there should be criminal charges. I'm just keeping it real. I mean, obstruction of justice in the very least, right? I mean, come on. you're part of a law enforcement agency. You get these types of allegations and you just sit on it. Why? Right? Yeah. There should be criminal charge. Getting fired is not enough. By the way, there's 2 FBI agents in question. One of them did get fired. The other one retired. The July report by Horowitz's office harshly criticized the supervisory a special agent in the FBI's Indianapolis office, now known to be Langman and Jay Abbott. So Langman got fired. Jay Abbott, the agent in charge of the FBI's Indianapolis field office, for bungling the Nassar case and later lying about it, Abbott retired in 2018. So that guy retires, he should face criminal charges. And in regard to Langman, that's Michael Langman. Christopher Wray, during his testimony, made clear that he got fired, but he recently got fired. Not enough.
Right before the hearings. Like that, but to be fair, the Inspector General report came out right before the hearings. I think 2 weeks before. So guys, one of the women who was assaulted was asked on CBS about this. It's harrowing and all that. And so I don't mean to dismiss it as all that. The details are horrific. And so the reporter kept asking, do you trust the system? Do you trust the system? I actually think that that's a really annoying question that misunderstands the situation. Well, it depends on what you mean, the system, right? So we've credited the FBI in the past for breaking up a bunch of domestic terrorist plots. They've actually gotten pretty good at that, and they've foiled a number of big bombings, often from the right wing, but not always from the right wing. And no matter where it comes from, that saves lives, so we give them credit for that. Then you have the Kavanaugh non-investigation, which is an absolute travesty that we talked about earlier in the show. This is an even bigger travesty. And it seemingly inexplicable and ridiculous. So which part of the FBI are we talking about? And then the Inspector General report comes out, and the Inspector General report was great. And by the way, that's also part of the system and holds people accountable, and it did. It said they should be fired, and they were, at least one of them was fired, as you saw the other one retired earlier. But they said you should pursue criminal charges against them. So that's the own department within the FBI saying our guy was a bad guy and you should charge him.
Absolutely.
But what I'm saying goes a little further. The FBI should look into that guy's personal life. And I don't mean like in some weird way and go find traffic tickets on him or unrelated issues. I mean, that is a very curious choice to not investigate such a serious charge about such a horrible situation. And now, guys, the one that is the fact that's most infuriating. Between the time the FBI knew and they investigated, it is estimated that Nassar molested, abused, and assaulted sexually 70 other girls.
Yeah.
And so that it's not, hey, a little delay. It's not, hey, people are human. This is not anywhere near an honest mistake. And so there should be criminal repercussions for those 70 girls and women who had to suffer under Nassar because of what these agents did.
150 women have come forward with sexual misconduct allegations against Larry Nassar, okay? And look, I guess we'll be fair. Christopher Wray, the FBI director, also testified on the same day that the women testified. So let's hear what he had to say, and we'll discuss.
I want to be crystal clear. The actions and inaction of the FBI employees detailed in this report are totally unacceptable. These individuals betrayed the core duty that they have of protecting people. They failed to protect young women and girls from abuse. And the work we do certainly is often complicated and uncertain, and we're never going to be perfect. But the kinds of fundamental errors that were made in this case in 2015 and 16 should never have happened, period. And as long as I'm FBI director, I'm committed to doing everything in my power to make sure they never happen again. The FBI cannot carry out its vital mission of protecting the American people without trust. And in this case, certain FBI agents broke that trust repeatedly and inexcusably. And to pretend otherwise would be yet one more insult to the survivors.
Listen, that was his statement, but I'm personally not buying it because it was under FBI Director Christopher Wray's leadership that the FBI conducted a sham investigation into the sexual misconduct allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. They didn't even interview Brett Kavanaugh in that 4-day sham investigation. They didn't interview Dr. Christine Blasey Ford in that sham investigation. They also didn't interview an eyewitness to a sexual misconduct allegation against Kavanaugh. Someone who was credible and came forward and said, hey, I was a witness to Brett Kavanaugh exposing his genitals to another woman. Didn't bother to interview that person. So for Christopher Wray to sit there and say, this is unacceptable, this will not happen under my leadership, not buying it. I want to know why they did a sham investigation into Brett Kavanaugh, who now sits in the United States Supreme Court.
So we say let's be fair all the time because it matters, of course, right? And we have to state that because a lot of news organizations aren't. So when you're looking at Christopher Wray, it's a complicated situation. On the one hand, we've had the good FBI investigations of domestic terrorism, and he was a Trump appointee, but generally stood up for democracy. Not like any sort of brave soldier or anything like that, but at least he didn't let Trump steamroll him on some of the issues. But on Kavanaugh, he was terrible. On the Larry Nassar issue, he was not FBI director at the time. It happened in 2015 and 2016. On the other hand, the FBI seems to have an old boys club attitude where if it's now we have a pattern of if it's sexual assault, the FBI don't go to them. They don't care. In fact, they'll help in these two very prominent cases, it appears they're helping the perpetrator rather than the victims. And by the way, there should be also fairness in the blame of who was in charge at the time. Tattered Remnant is one of our members, and we do the show with you guys. And they wrote in just to point out this abuse and the failure to investigate it happened under both Obama and Trump.
Yep.
So it was late Obama, and it was all of Trump. But yes, it was those guys, and that culture at the FBI existed under them throughout this entire time.
You know, it seems like whether it's on a federal level or a local level, law enforcement that's supposed to protect Americans, to keep them safe, fails over and over and over again. It's fascinating, it's a common thread. Doesn't matter if it's on a local level or a federal level. Anyway, we gotta take a break. When we come back, an insane story involving nursing homes drugging their residents just because they don't want to spend the money to ensure that they have the staff necessary to give people the care that they need. We've got that story and more when we return.
Back during the social break, which now is one of my favorite parts of the show, because I get to read your comments, interact, etc. Kind of love it. Tracy Ravenhawk, is she an American hero? I guess. Did she hit the join button below on YouTube? I guess. So she's a member now. Tracy, you're the best. Thank you for joining us. Peter Hamby on Super Chat writes in, Christopher took his investigation the wrong way, and the FBI is doing more legal gymnastics that would make Simone Biles tumble her eyes. A little bit too much on the gymnastics puns there, Peter. I'd stick with the haikus, but I get it. And British 32 says, hi, Cenk and Anna. Another great evening of TYT about how screwed up the USA is at the moment. By the way, Anna, you may have to swap Cenk's coffee for decaf because he seems a little bit too hyper today with the terrible news from around USA.
No, I don't mind Cenk being hyper. I don't like when he gets ahead of me in sharing details. I want to make sure you guys have all the details before he goes off, you know?
Okay, let me tell you something else about that, okay? All right, now, first of all, it's too strong. What you're alleging here, let's be honest, is that Too Strong Coffee is too strong. That's your allegation. Guilty as charged. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
By the way, it is a fascinating marketing effort because it's too strong could either be a good thing or like, I don't know, it's too strong. But you guys went for it and it's doing well.
But we did go for it. It was also bold to say, yeah, we're giving money to progressive causes. Well, are you allowed to do that? Yeah, I'm allowed to do it. So what? I'm giving it to them. Okay, Wolfpack, Just Democrats, Rebellion Pack. You don't like it, don't buy the coffee. You like it, buy the coffee. You don't like it, don't buy the coffee. Okay, if you buy the coffee, money's going to go to progressive causes.
Okay.
And then on social media, the social media accounts like goes after the right wing all the time. Are you allowed to do that? Goddamn right.
Dude, I'm gonna put some Benadryl in your coffee if you don't calm down.
They're like, wait a minute though. That sounds like it's too strong. Goddamn right it is. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Okay. All right, I'm going to Twitch. Daisy Dragon, speaking of too strong, gave 1,000 bits. You're awesome. Jay Zero gifted 5 subs. Steve J gifted a sub. Chipmunk PDX wrote in, 10 months here, but a fan since the Air America days back in 2007. Chipmunk.
I
don't know why that was our response, but that happened. I told you the social breaks now is super fun. The Dodo Dragon, already fun, writes in, month number 8, TYT is great. Your news is the best, so Fox the rest. The Dragon's the best in the state. All right, Dodo Dragon. Everybody's rhyming today. Everybody's got poems. Last one. Greg in the member section, just renewed my membership, 4th year as a member and 6th year as a viewer. Although I had to rethink it when I heard Cenk and Dave bad-mouthing hockey on Old School a couple of weeks ago. What's the hell? But I suppose hiring Nina Turner made up for it. That's right. Okay, so speaking of which, the power panel tomorrow, first hour is me, Francesca, and Nina Turner.
Yes.
Okay, and the second hour is Jackson Squared. J.R. Jackson and Jackson White and myself. Don't miss it. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys and all these lovely members. I'm gonna read one last one. 241-pound dragon in the room wrote in, and they were apparently in the room. So I'm sad today for so many reasons. Hope Cenk and Anna and my TYT family can help cheer me up. Not with the news, of course, that's a train wreck, but with their coverage of it. And if you're watching during the social breaks on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, etc., I think we do a pretty good job. Watch the show live. Tell everybody to watch the show live. 6 to 8 o'clock Eastern. In between the bad news, we have tons of fun.
Yeah, and look, even with the bad news, like the thing that keeps me going is that we've got an incredible family here, people who are fighting for the right causes, we're fighting together. So just know that we got your back. It's gonna be all right.
100%, I love it. Okay, Casper.
All right, so this is definitely a doozy of a story. Having a profit motive behind certain elements of life, certain areas of care has been a disaster, certainly in healthcare. And now we're finding that nursing homes that are privatized, of course, are seeking to maximize profits, cut costs. And one way that they do that is understaff and essentially needlessly drug their residents so they don't really have to deal with them too often. This was a pretty heartbreaking investigative story from the New York Times where they found that privatized nursing homes are in fact prescribing antipsychotic drugs to their residents when they do not need them. So here's one specific example. There's David Blakeney, 63-year-old, was restless and agitated. The home's doctor wanted him on an antipsychotic medication called Haldol, a powerful sedative. In the prescription for him, it said, add DX of schizophrenia for use of Haldol. That's what the doctor's order read, using the medical shorthand for diagnosis. But there was no evidence that the resident actually had schizophrenia. So the doctors in these nursing homes are just diagnosing them with schizophrenia in order to be able to drug them with these antipsychotic drugs. So here's an image that the New York Times shared of the prescription in question, just to provide evidence and some receipts for what's going on here. Now, Blakeney's medical records show that several people warned that he was too sedated, receiving too many drugs. 8 months following his admission with a long list of ailments, and after round-the-clock sedation, devastating weight loss, pneumonia, and severe bed sores that required one of his feet to be amputated, Blakeney was dead. It's just an incredibly heartbreaking story, and that's anecdotal evidence, right? But this investigation found that this practice is widespread, and there is a loophole that pharmaceutical companies have lobbied to make happen in order for these nursing homes to be able to prescribe antipsychotic drugs to their residents when they do not in fact need them. So though antipsychotics, of course, can be incredibly useful and necessary for people who need treatment for medical disorders, that is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about people who do not have schizophrenia, who do not have the mental disorders that would warrant the use of these antipsychotic drugs. So I'm gonna give you more details and some broader figures in just a second. But Cenk, do you wanna jump in?
Yeah, so of course, you question the motive, why are they doing this? And there's, again, two possibilities here. And it doesn't have to be either or, it could be both. One is laziness. Well, it's easier to take care of them if they're sedated, and that's pretty brutal. But yes, unfortunately, people do that. And then the second is profit. Well, we can take care of more of them if we just sedate them and throw them on to different, into rooms and beds where they literally don't ever get up until they get bed sores that are so bad it requires amputation, and we could house more of them and make more money. I don't know which one it is or if it's both, but neither one's good.
Now, there are some regulations in regard to prescribing antipsychotic drugs, right? So I mentioned that loophole that pharmaceutical companies have fought for. I'm gonna get to that in a second. But first, let's go to graphic 7 here. The risks to patients treated with antipsychotics are so high that nursing homes must report to the government how many of their residents are on these potent medications. But there is an important caveat. The government doesn't publicly divulge the use of antipsychotics given to residents with schizophrenia or 2 other conditions. So that's the loophole, right? So if the resident has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, well, the nursing home doesn't have to report that to the federal government. Okay, so there actually wasn't a public record of Blakeney, for instance, being on these antipsychotic drugs. And so through this loophole, the government and the nursing home industry are actually obscuring the true rate of this antipsychotic drug use within these nursing homes and among these vulnerable residents. Now, last year, the industry teamed up with drug companies and others to push Congress and federal regulators to even broaden the list of conditions under which antipsychotics don't need to be publicly disclosed. So they want to ensure that there's less reporting. Listen, pharmaceutical companies were front and center. They were the ones that drove the opioid epidemic that the country is still dealing with today. And if people think that it ends there, it doesn't end there. They find other ways to essentially loosen regulations that basically end up with doctors prescribing more and more of these drugs that end up harming people, right? And in the case of these nursing home residents, can end up killing people, right? And so what's the motive? Why would these nursing homes want to do it? When you have privatized nursing homes, they want to cut their costs and maximize their profits. So what they do is hire fewer staff members to take care of the residents, and when the staff members are overwhelmed because they're understaffed, well, an easy solution to that, which is incredibly harmful to the residents, is to sedate them with antipsychotic drugs. And that's what's happening here.
So our members often have specific expertise in these issues, and so that's why, among the reasons why we love doing the show with them, tyt.com/join to become a member. In this case, Anahita 13 wrote in, we don't even use Haldol as a chemical restraint in the ER. unless it's absolutely necessary for the safety of the patient. Misuse of chemical restraints is illegal, and I'm disgusted.
It's disgusting.
Yes.
It really is.
It is, and remember that particular person died, let alone all of the other cases that this affects. But remember, unfortunately, so many of these stories come back to money and politics. Remember, Andrew Cuomo had COVID patients go back into nursing homes, and then we found out nursing homes were his donors. So they had money to make, even if the COVID patients were gonna come back in. It was just an unbelievably greedy thing to do, and it was facilitated by the fact that they'd basically bought off the governor. And later we found out, yeah, apparently there was no, not much restraint to what Cuomo would do ethically. And so, but all that, the things about his corruption we already knew, but the press didn't cover that much. But on the other hand, New York Times here with a great story, and credit to them for exposing this problem. And then finally,
I got to give you one more stat before you say finally.
Of course.
Just to give you a sense of how much of a problem this is, take a look at how nursing home residents are disproportionately diagnosed with schizophrenia. So, and given these antipsychotic drugs. Today, 1 in 9 residents has received a schizophrenia diagnosis in these nursing homes. In the general population, the disorder, which has strong genetic roots, afflicts roughly 1 in 150 people. And understand that schizophrenia isn't something that ends up getting diagnosed for the first time when someone is in their older years, when someone's a senior. People typically start showing signs of schizophrenia much younger in life. And so it's so clear that they're abusing this intentionally to intentionally sedate the residents in these nursing homes.
There is no coincidence that large.
Right.
And Anna's right, it's one thing if it's Alzheimer's, it's completely different if it's schizophrenia that doesn't have anything to do with age. So these disproportionate numbers make no sense. My last point was just going to be, guys, the power of the drug companies are gigantic, but also why? Because of politics, because of money and politics. They're the #1 donors, even more than banks and oil companies, et cetera, to politicians, and they get monopolies. We're not allowed to negotiate drug prices. But then the worst of it is they're allowed to run amok as they poison the country with OxyContin and this type of situation as we see in this story. We have got to have a government that represents us and not these donors. Go and help Wolfpack if you can, wolf-pack.com/join, because they're actually trying to get money out of politics. And without that, unfortunately, that poison infects every story, including this one.
I wanted to mention one other thing, Jen, because what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, you have corporate Democrats that are completely captured by corporate interests and the pharmaceutical companies. And yesterday we covered a story about how 3 corporate Democrats within the House Energy Committee voted down the provision in the budget reconciliation bill that would allow for Medicare to negotiate drug prices directly with pharmaceutical companies, thus giving them the opportunity and the ability to significantly lower drug prices for those on Medicare.
No, there's no excuse for it at all. It's just brazen corruption and bribery. And we just allow it, and it's destroyed our government and destroyed our democracy. I was on Joe Walsh's podcast yesterday, to come out in a couple of weeks. He's a former Republican who used to be a terrible, very conservative. He's the guy who yelled at Obama, et cetera. And now he's turned on Trump and he's turned on a lot of things. He's still very conservative. But look, and now I had conservatives on the other day. You guys saw the shouting match that I had with them. But in the beginning of the interview, the one thing all conservatives agree on is, God, they hate the corruption. And so you guys hate it, we hate it. The only people who like it are the corrupt, the politicians and the media who are in bed with all of these giant corporations and who are, in the case of the media, giant corporations themselves. And it is literally killing us. That's the effects of it. We have got to get the money out.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, an explosive TYT Investigates story, some original reporting from TYT involving a Democratic lawmaker who went to an anti-LGBT conference in Ukraine. What was he doing there, especially when he considers himself an ally to the community here in the United States? We've got that and more for you when we come back.
during the social break here. Do we have new American heroes? I guess. High Street Radio Cafe. All of a sudden, that entire cafe is an American hero. I like doing it under your business name. That makes sense. You get a free plug out of it. Here, I'll say it again. High Street Radio Cafe. I said it. You know why? Because now you're one of us. Kevin Swanson, also one of us, also American hero. They did something super similar. They hit the join button below. By the way, you upgrade, I got to give you another plug. I'll tell you, there's nothing I can do. Burgundy will read anything in the join button prompter. Anyways, now let's go to Super Chat. Randall Henderson writes in, and thank you, Randall. Appreciate the generosity. They said, credit where credit is due. Morning Joe every day this week did more to promote progressive ideals than I have ever heard in the mainstream media. Please review and give credit. Strongly promoted voters' rights, Biden's agenda, tax fairness, farmer reform, January 6th investigation, infrastructure, etc. Yes, look, I got tons and tons of bones to pick with Joe Scarborough, and he's awful on other issues. But I trust you, and so if you say he said those things, and of course I didn't have time to watch the whole Morning Joe, let alone any other show this week. I believe you, and so if he's doing good work on that, great. Happy to have him on those issues, supporting the right thing, and thank you for being honest about it. And even though you don't like mainstream media, saying, "Hey, here's a guy who's doing well this week." That's great. That's fair and honest. That's what we want. Axe Smith writes in. As a guardian to the elderly, I saw people kept dehydrated to keep them from needing diapers changed. Oof. Jesus, man, the brutality sometimes.
Nursing homes should not be privatized.
Yeah, I hear you on that too, but those are all tough issues, but for the profit motive and out of laziness, it's just despicable. Now, Twitch, wonderful Americans here. Elder Mind Pulse gifted 50 subs. Amazing, amazing. They did it again. Metal Kitty Mom gave 1,000 bits. And I'm a Spooky Kitty as a new sub with Prime. We appreciate it. TYT.com/Prime to figure out how to do it. If you have Amazon Prime, it's free for you. All right, now I'm going to the member section. Jumbo Gino wrote in, a little good news for the TYT fam. Earlier today, I was at the grocery store wearing my TYT hat and someone recognized the logo, already awesome. He said he just recently discovered you guys and I recommended he also check out Damage Report and Indisputable. John Bogino, how much do we love you? Okay.
I mean, I love him every time I hear his handle.
I know, and it's already funny, it's already awesome. He just added a little extra awesome on top of what was already existing awesome. Your cup overfloweth with too strong coffee, probably. Okay, anyway, he said if he's watching, shout out to Brian. Look at that, okay? We're a community, we do this together. Lend me a quarter for the change machine, writes in. With the antipsychotics, they hit two birds with one stone. I think it's both, sloth and greed. Unfortunately, that's true. I Am Sock writes in, it's pretty insane that rich white people can rape children or try to overthrow the government and get less of a sentence than a poor minority person smoking weed. Unfortunately, that also happens all the time. Smarter than 74 million American voters wrote in, some of Epstein and Maxwell's victims have said the FBI ignored their rapes. Back on TYT, Jake Ewer, Anna Kasparian, we do the news. So hence, there's more of it now.
Okay. Jesus. All right, so why would a Democratic congressman and an alleged ally to the LGBT community attend an anti-LGBT conservative conference in Ukraine? That's what I want to know. That's the question that we should ask Representative Juan Vargas of California. In fact, TYT Investigates has a bombshell of a story involving his attendance at the prayer breakfast in Ukraine, because it's not just in the United States where evangelicals want to spread their conservative, anti-reproductive rights and anti-LGBT messaging. Representative Juan Vargas, an LGBTQ ally in the United States, was a featured participant at an anti-LGBTQ event in Ukraine last week. The annual event is also a hub for opponents of reproductive rights, and this year included a side discussion on defending conservative values. In fact, let's take a look at this tweet that makes it abundantly clear what this was all about. Again, this is in Ukraine. After the National Prayer Breakfast, we had the opportunity to share our experiences in defending of conservative values on an international discussion panel. Okay, so there's no mistake about what this is about. And I do also want to direct you to this photo to show you Representative Juan Vargas on this panel. He's the one who's got the headphones on, chilling, having a back and forth with conservative goons in Ukraine. Vargas, by the way, is one of the few Democrats still involved with The Family. That's the evangelical right-wing organization. He has been listed as a National Prayer Breakfast host for the past 3 years and co-chaired it in 2016 when the invitation list discriminated against Catholics, progressive religious leaders, and non-evangelicals.
Okay, so one of the things that we're doing here is exposing what The Family actually is. Because what they do is, and this is really important, guys, and part of the whole series of articles on TYT.com about this, is that they use the aura of bipartisanship to push a very conservative agenda, oftentimes an anti-LGBTQ agenda, and oftentimes abroad, where they'll say, look, we've got Republicans and Democrats, all the powerful people in America agree that you should do this. The guy talking to Vargas in that picture that we showed you is one of the most right-wing people in Ukraine, and he's very anti-LGBT, and he talked about how, oh yeah, the Americans agree. Now, he's actually part of a very small evangelical Christian community in Ukraine. It's only 2% of Ukraine, but it is growing larger and more powerful every day. Why? Because it's getting funding and attention from evangelical Americans. So they're pushing out this agenda, and part of that agenda is gay people shouldn't have the same rights as straight people. So if you're a Democrat that's going along with this, you're doing grave damage to people who you say you're representing. So we gave Vargas an opportunity to comment. He didn't. There was another Democrat that attended that did comment and actually, seemed to me, at least through his quotes, and read the article, and the article is going to be in the description box below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, or you can just go to TYT.com. You'll see there's another Democrat that seems like he didn't quite know. And that's okay, that's why we do the stories. That's called investigative journalism. We let you know and then see what your reaction is.
Yeah, let's see what your reaction is.
Right, but the guy who's the biggest Democrat in favor of the prayer breakfast is Chris Coons.
Bingo.
Joe Biden's top ally in the Senate. And one of our reporters caught up with him on camera before, and he totally defended the prayer breakfast. And they always say it's nonpartisan. It ain't nonpartisan, and it's used to do terrible things across the world.
Well, let's pause for a second, because in regard to attendance for the National Prayer Breakfast here in the United States, it certainly has been nonpartisan, and that's a problem. Because make no mistake about it, the people behind this organization are evangelical conservatives. And the event itself has these, they do the prayer breakfast, but the whole point isn't to get together and pray. It's really a way for, powerful people to meet and make deals. Like they have these breakout rooms where deals are made, right? Where lobbying takes place. And that's a huge part of it. This is also the same organization that went to Uganda and pushed for a law that would execute members of the LGBT community in that country. So while Democrats have attended the National Prayer Breakfast, Obama had attended the National Prayer Breakfast, make no mistake about it, ideologically speaking, there are serious issues with this organization and what it promotes, right? And look, I don't know, you're way more willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. You're way more optimistic than I am. I'm definitely way more pessimistic. So I can't help but roll my eyes at any lawmaker who's like, oh, well, I had no idea. I had no idea that this was,
no.
But okay, I guess they're clueless. They're completely clueless about organizations that they decide to get involved with. I mean, maybe do a little bit of homework.
Yeah, so that's why I draw a big distinction between the folks who really genuinely didn't know, and you could tell in their reaction, and the people like Chris Coons who clearly know and don't mind and are greatly annoyed when you do reporting on it that exposes something they already knew.
Oh, are you annoyed about reporting Chris Coons? Sorry about that.
Yeah, no Democrat in their right mind should go to this group. Every LGBTQ group in the country should be outraged at any Democrat that supports this group. And so I make that distinction between the two people who didn't know, because there's definitely good progressives who didn't know. Once we brought this reporting to Ro Khanna and Ted Lieu, they immediately pulled out. Because you have to understand, in America, the media did propaganda in favor of this group for decades. They would constantly show Bill Clinton and George Bush and Barack Obama and all these people, Hillary Clinton, going to the breakfast and like, this is nonpartisan, this is nonpartisan. And then they do the breakout rooms where they convince Mike Lindell to support Donald Trump and give all of his money to massive right-wing causes. That's another article at tyt.com that got a lot of attention, okay? And then they send legislators, including Democrats, abroad to push an anti-LGBTQ agenda. Some of them winning, some of them unwitting. But now you got to pull out of this group, otherwise you're complicit in what they're doing.
I want to also direct you to some of the statements that were made by a representative, a Republican representative back in 2019. So this is in Ukraine, it's the same event, but it's not 2021 or 2020, it's 2019. So Family Insider Representative Tim Walberg tells Ukrainian prayer breakfast attendees that if he does what God wants, regardless of what my constituents think of me, the God who I serve will be pleased. In the same speech, Walberg praises then President Trump's support for supporting marriage between a man and a woman for life and for life from conception to natural death. So these are the kinds of speeches that they're giving at the exact same event. I just, like, spare me the like, oh, I didn't know what this was about. But okay, maybe, sure, maybe some people are completely clueless about what's going on. Maybe they're on their phones, not paying attention to the insane speeches that are being given.
But Anna, just to be fair, that most of the time when the cameras are rolling, they do not give those speeches.
This was on camera.
No, I hear you. That one was, right? And so, and look, I'm telling every Democrat, you're nuts if you're going to these things. But a lot of the reasons that even some progressives went was because there's tremendous marketing in DC that this is a wonderful thing to go to. So hey, if you're not Christian, but you're going to the prayer breakfast, that shows how much you care about the religious community and your constituents that are religious or Christian, especially if you're not one, right? So make sure you go. And that gives them the veneer of respectability. And people think, okay, that's good. I want to respect the Christians in my community, and a lot of them are left-wing, etc. So it's a perfect little trap to push their right-wing agenda. That's why I say the distinction between knowing and not knowing is everything in this case. But how many stories can we do? And it's not like they don't know. We ask for comments every time.
Exactly.
We've asked Coons for a comment on camera, and he gives a dismissive comment, protects the organization, and runs away. So the people that continue to go, now there's no question that they know, and you should hold them accountable.
All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about one of the most unhinged moments I've seen in the news. So, Newsmax host Grant Stinchfield went on one of the most unhinged rant professing his loyalty to Donald Trump. Now, he was discussing the US withdrawal from Afghanistan. And in the context of that discussion, he has a guest on, a man by the name of Joe Sabo. He is the founder of a group known as Team America, right? So right on brand for Newsmax. And look, what Sabo's doing is he's trying to help our Afghan allies leave Afghanistan. So that's what his whole project is with Team America. But it's not really about him. It's about the fact that as soon as he had super mild criticism for Trump, Stinchfield, well, just watch.
I can tell you this didn't happen under President Trump. And I know there's a lot of people on the left that want to try to blame President Trump. He wanted out of Afghanistan real bad. He was real frustrated not being able to get out, but he didn't pull out because he knew this would happen. In fact, we all did. I called it on this program.
With due respect, Grant, I mean, like veterans, being one, right? And our friends are over there. We followed this closely for multiple administrations, and we know the Trump's administration's efforts here were fairly weak. That they were trying to limit the number of people that would get out, and so there was coordination problems.
Joe, I'm gonna cut you. I'm already weak. I'm already low on time, Joe. Cut him off, please. Cut him off now. Cut him off now. You're not gonna blame this on President Trump on my show. That's not happening. Now, I appreciate the work that you're doing. God bless you for being a veteran. God bless you for trying to get Americans out. But don't come on this program and take the talking points of the left and blame President Trump. That's not helping anybody. The Biden administration screwed this up from the very start. You know it, I know it, the country knows it. I'm mad about that, man, I really am. All right, we're gonna slow it down because we've got a real hero coming up. That man's a real hero too, he served.
I mean, not to recycle a line from Twitter, but Trump's not gonna F you, bro. Like, relax. Like, what was that?
Yeah, no, that was a catastrophe. Like, these guys are obsessed with Trump. They're in love. I mean, would that guy defend his mother with that kind of rage? I doubt it. Like, I mean, that was the mildest criticism of Trump I have ever heard in my life. That the guy just said in passing, previous administrations weren't great on this issue either, as he was hitting Joe Biden.
Right.
And this cuck over here is like, oh, how dare you? That's my beloved. That's our dear leader. We pray to him. We worship him, his feet, his ass. How dare you? Cut him off. Cut him off. That was the mildest criticism I've ever seen. Oh my God, Donald Trump, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Donald. No. I'll do anything. Please come over. My wife's available.
For me, it reinforced something that I already knew and we've talked about on this show, which is when it comes to our troops, when it comes to our veterans, these are people who get used as props by right-wing talking heads and blockheads like Stinchfield, right? They don't actually care about, we need to support our troops. They don't even care about getting the troops safely out of Afghanistan unless they can use them as props conveniently to make their political talking points, right? That's all it is, that's all it is. I mean, that veteran was super calm. And what he was saying was accurate, right? He was just trying to make a point about like, look, the Trump administration wanted to limit the number of our Afghan allies into the United States,
That's
right?
a fact.
It's just a fact.
And Trump says it all the time.
He says it like brazenly.
So I don't know, Stinchfield, are you in favor of bringing in our allies or not in favor of bringing in our allies? Do you agree with Trump's position or don't you? But like, he didn't even want to deal with that cognitive dissonance. And he didn't want to deal with anyone ever criticizing the authoritarian leader he wishes were in charge instead of our current democracy. Have you ever seen a man so triggered in your entire life?
It was incredible, it really was.
Yeah, I mean, they say, oh yeah, Trump lives rent-free inside your heads. No, apparently he lives rent-free inside your heads and in your pants.
My God.
Okay, I mean, I've never seen anyone so in love with someone in my life.
That was pretty amazing. All right, there's one other example I want to give you guys. This one is not as explosive. However, it does involve Mo Brooks, so you know it's going to be fun. Now, Mo Brooks is debating his political opponent. This is part of their campaign for a Senate seat. So Katie Britt is the Republican opponent that he's debating here. And they get into this debate, not about an issue that would actually matter to the constituents they're hoping to represent, but about who loves Trump more. Let's watch.
Congressman, I guess my question for you is, when you said you didn't know if you'd vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump back in 2016 and refused to answer the question, I think then that you maybe weren't standing with him. And then you also denigrated our president, President Trump, and you said all of us who voted for him, which by the way, I voted for him every single time he was on the ballot, and so did my husband, and that is certainly not something you can say. So it seems that you might have started the whole let's not stand with the party. Well, I think we've gone back and forth here.
I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. I voted for Donald Trump in 2020. And I think you're going to see a lot of misinformation like you've just seen. In 2016, I cut a check for $2,500 to help Donald Trump get elected. I don't know how much other people do. I know Linda Blanchard did quite a bit. I don't know about the other candidates, okay? But there's a reason why Donald Trump endorsed me in 2018. Donald Trump endorsed me in 2020. Donald Trump has endorsed me in 2022. So if you want to make an issue of Donald Trump and where he stands, by golly, let's have at it. Because Donald Trump knows who the real fighter is for the MAGA agenda in the state of Alabama, and he has said it as Mo Brooks. So you can take Katie's word for it, or you can take Donald Trump's word for it.
I just want to remind you all of the specific person that they're having this loyalty off about. Let's watch.
The book also quotes Trump as telling his always loyal Vice President Mike Pence that if he didn't refuse to certify the election results, quote, "I don't want to be your friend anymore."
But by the way, that's why they're doing this ass kissing contest. Because it's true, like for Republicans, now the recent poll, this is really interesting. 59% of Republicans said supporting Donald Trump is a core part of what it means to be a Republican. That's 6 out of 10 Republicans saying, like, it's not just even a loyalty test, it's an ass kissing test. If you're not inside his cheeks, you're not a Republican. That's what 6 out of 10 Republicans say. So that's why these guys are humiliating themselves. They're like, oh yeah, my husband also voted for him. Did your dog vote for him? I bet your dog didn't vote for him. And neither did your cousins. We know it because it's Alabama. Okay, and by the way, note that this is Alabama, where Jeff Sessions was the first senator to support Donald Trump in 2016. Donald Trump makes him attorney general, and then Jeff Sessions recuses himself from the Russia case because he was involved. And he obliterated Jeff Sessions. He destroyed Jeff Sessions' career.
He didn't want to be his friend anymore.
Yeah, he didn't. But that's right, he didn't. I don't want to be Jeff's friend anymore. And everybody, you gotta be Trump's friend. You gotta be Trump's friend, and your husband has to be Trump's friend, and your dog. Everyone's got to be Trump's friend. Look at what he did, Jeff Sessions. They're so weak. The entire party has been cucked by this guy.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it's amazing that ass kiss off.
It's so good.
Where they went back and forth. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
They're standing up too. They're like, I'm gonna stand up and really make my case for how much I love Donald Trump. Like, it's amazing. They're not getting animated about anything that would materially improve the lives of their constituents. They're just getting animated over who loves Donald Trump more. And yes, I'm gonna do it. We gotta watch that last video one more time because it gives me just energy. It gives me life. It gives what I need. Let's watch.
The book also quotes Trump as telling his always loyal Vice President Mike Pence that if he didn't refuse to certify the election results, quote, "I don't want to be your friend anymore."
I can't get enough of that video. My favorite part is like, he says, quote, like just a serious reporter, like I love that this is like an old school, like seasoned vet, like has been a reporter forever. And he's like, I have been reduced to reporting on this garbage.
And he's like, what voice do I give it? Do I say, I don't want to be your friend anymore? Or do I just read it normal? I don't know. Republicans, if it seems like we're laughing at you, that's because we are. You guys are in a contest to see who could worship this leader more. And it's like really embarrassing in a way that we're greatly enjoying. Yeah. I mean, did you see those quotes in the middle of that debate over who loves Trump more? And he said, oh yeah, we want to talk about who likes Trump more. And he said, quote, or as if I was a CBS reporter, he said, quote, let's have at it.
Quote, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
We have to get that on the soundboard. I love it. It's so good.
And then somebody else like, okay, I'm the real, quote, real fighter for Trump. It reminded me of a friend of mine got really drunk on Halloween once. And some other guy who was dressed up as the Hulk got into a fight. And my drunk friend starts yelling at him from across the street. Hey, Hulk, the real fight is here. The real fight is here, okay? And that's what these folks are. Hey, Trump, okay? The real fighter for you is here. Please be my friend.
Quote, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
All right, that does it for our first hour. When we come back for the second hour, a woman whose toddler was essentially exploited for PR purposes for the cops gets a fat settlement. I love this story. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here. This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richey. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Quote, I don't want to be your friend anymore.
Back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Laura Potty. Okay, Laura, you're an American hero. So is Carl Tuckerson, in brackets, the anti-Tucker. American hero in 2 different ways. And Chaplain Fred, thank you for blessing us. So hit the join button below, join them. Young Turks members make this possible. In fact, I'm gonna go to Little Mac here, super chat, saying, but Cenk, America has the best healthcare system in the world. Fox News says so, and therefore it must be true. What do you want? Some backwards healthcare system like Canada has? I hear in Canada, healthcare is so bad, it's free. That's funny, Little Mac. All right, speaking of funny.
So funny. So special thanks to Zappahart on Twitter, who informed me about the fact that Mo Brooks's handle on Twitter actually says Mo Brooks endorsed by Donald Trump. And look, I gotta confirm, I gotta make sure that I corroborate, and it's true. It's true. It's just the funniest thing in the world.
No, soon it's gonna get so humiliating. It's gonna be like, Mo Brooks, Trump once looked deeply into my eyes. Okay, that's gonna be their handle. Louis Gohmert, Trump once held my hand.
Oh, it's so good. All right, well, we've got more news for you. A positive update on a story involving police, which is rare, but this is a good one. So, Philadelphia is forced to pay a hefty settlement to a mother whose toddler was exploited for a PR stunt by the police union. So before I get to what that settlement amounts to, let me give you some context. So last year, the Fraternal Order of Police, the largest police union, decided to pull this PR stunt where they posted an image of a cop basically embracing a little toddler, a black toddler, right? So this was posted, I believe it was on Facebook, and there we go. The post read, let's keep the picture up, but I do want to read what the caption reads there. The child was lost during the violent riots in Philadelphia, wandering around barefoot in an area that was experiencing complete lawlessness. The only thing this Philadelphia police officer cared about in that moment was protecting this child, right? So this was a way of doing obviously positive PR for the cops, but the main point here was to essentially speak out against the Black Lives Matter protests that were taking place at the time. Now, it turns out that the post was, and I know, I'm shocked, I'm sure you'll be shocked to believe, was grossly misrepresenting what happened that day. The toddler was actually taken away from his mother as she was being beaten by the cops. The police union used her child's picture in this misleading Facebook post to essentially gain sympathy at a time when cops were being protested in these mass movements across the country. Now, again, the child was not lost. The child was taken away from his mother, and the mother was met with brutality. Now, here's how things really went down that night. Nursing aide Rakia Young was heading home in the early hours of October 27th of 2020 when she unknowingly drove into a large protest over the police killing of Walter Wallace Jr. She tried to make a 3-point turn to get away from the tense scene when officers smashed out her windows with their batons, and that's according to her attorneys. Young was then handcuffed and separated from her teenage nephew and 2-year-old son for several hours, and no one was ever charged or cited, according to the woman's lawyer. The hearing impaired toddler lost his hearing aids during this incident, right? Now, the police department eventually took down that insanely misleading image, and they cited conflicting account of circumstances for why they did that. But the compensation and action against the cops came later, and that's where I want to get into the details of this settlement. So, Cenk, do you want to jump in before I do that?
So sometimes we run stories where cops do positive things, and why? We're against all cops, we're in favor of all cops? No, it depends, doesn't it? And do we want the cops to do the right thing? Yeah, and then in which case we would support them wholeheartedly. Why? Because we want our communities to be protected. But they often lie, very, very, very often. So when people say, why don't you trust the cops? I mean, look at the lies just in that one picture. They said that there was violent riots and the kid was walking around barefoot in this lawless area. But you didn't tell them that you beat the crap out of his mom for no reason at all when she hadn't done anything wrong, and he was barefoot because you assaulted his family. that might be a relevant part of the story, and which you then turned around in a massive lie. And then if you notice the last sentence there, as Anna showed you, was the only thing the Philadelphia police officer cared about in that moment was protecting the child. No, earlier, Philadelphia police cared about assaulting the mom viciously, dragging her out of the car, and then leaving the kid to wander around barefoot until they found him and then did a photo op with him.
Right.
It really is quite sick.
Absolutely. So let's get to Rekia Young fighting back, and I'm very happy she did. So Young and her child last week filed a lawsuit against the union seeking damages for invasion of privacy and infliction of emotional distress. 2 Philadelphia policemen, an officer and sergeant, have since been fired, which is great, in connection to the treatment of Young, and that's according to a city spokesperson. The city of Philadelphia will also pay $2 million to Rekia Young, who was again pulled from her car, beaten by officers, and had her toddler used for social media fodder by the police union, officials said. So that's obviously a positive update, but we actually don't fall for these like PR stunts by cops. I'm usually a lot more skeptical, and I remember at the time when this photo was going viral, we covered it the way it needed to be covered. We didn't just because especially that police union has gone out of its way to cover up or make excuses for the worst brutality that we've experienced in reporting these types of stories, right? I mean, cases of unarmed people getting shot in the back as they're running away from the cops, like those kinds of situations. And so for them to put out an image like that, you should just be a little skeptical. Don't take it at face value and wait for some more details about the incident in question.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been other cases where cops played basketball with folks in the community. They diffused the situation. We're happy to give credit where it's deserved, but unfortunately, it hasn't been deserved a lot recently. And the one thing you should know, and I'm being honest with you guys, if you are on a jury, what the media used to tell you is the cops are saints. You should always believe what they say. We've now seen in literally hundreds of prominent cases, let alone the ones you never see, where they lie with wanton disregard for the truth. They will protect themselves and they will beat people up, and they act like a gang. So if I see a cop on the stand, I'm not saying I would automatically disbelieve them. Of course not. I have an open mind and I'd want to see the facts of the situation, the context, but I'm a lot less likely to believe them because they're notorious liars.
Yep. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, while the right wing would have you believe that the left is just trying to indoctrinate everyone and we're teaching critical race theory to elementary school students, the right wing is actually doing it, but not with critical race theory, of course, with insane revisionist history. We've got that story and more when we come back.
On TYT here, there's so many great things that you guys wrote in. Speaking of our community, by the way, I want to tell you, we're doing this wonderful thing on tyt.com/immunity where we get to immunity. That was an interesting Freudian slip. Community, where we are showing who you guys are, the members. So Allison Hartson's interviewing folks. I love to see it. Okay, so you get to meet people that are in the community. So in this case, we talked to Michael Berlind, and he's a screenwriter, a freelance reporter, and a TYT Army volunteer. He's working on an article about the dystopian reality of feel-good stories in the mainstream media. And so we've told you about other folks that are in there. So go to tyt.com/community and let us know if you want to be involved too, because it isn't just about us. It's about all of you guys getting to know each other, empowering one another, and then working together towards change. So we're doing something completely different on this show. And the rest of the media hates it. Oh, you're not supposed to empower people and have them actually help change their lives for the better. Really? Why aren't I supposed to do that? Nah, I don't agree. So we're gonna do that. And one of the ways that we do that is through this. Okay, now let's go to the member section. And Lynn wrote in, Newsmax host is not gonna be his friend anymore, referring to the guest. That's hilarious. Michelle said, if they would stop killing innocent people, they wouldn't need a PR stunt. Good point, Michelle. LB says, nursing home employees are horribly overworked, underpaid because of the corporate model. But the majority do all they can for their patients and truly love them. LB, I'm sure that's true. And so there's wonderful people who work in nursing homes, and a lot of our audience does too. Unfortunately, it's everyone who's writing in is saying it's the profit model, and that's part of the point that Anna was making. In fact, let me find the other ones here. Lena Presley wrote in on Super Chat, national average for the cost of nursing homes is $7,756 a month, I assume per patient. The median income for CNAs is only $24,000 a year. Use of chemical restraints is 100% profit driven. So these are, really good points from all of you guys out there who have some experience with this. Chaplain Fred, who just joined, by the way, wrote in, Anna, there are 2 facilities in Glendale that have been investigated. It's so sad. I see all this. I see this all the time, and I was even threatened by doctors for asking why they were prescribing it.
No,
wow.
Keep fighting, and you know what? Keep sending us tips like that. Like I would love to be able to investigate that stuff.
Yeah, into TYT Investigates, and we'll look into things. In fact, we're gonna do more and more stuff about California in specific, because it's so important to the rest of the country, as we saw in that recall election. And Progressive Canuck writes in, as stated, maybe look to the north for guidance. I love you all. Progressives, love from the north, appreciate it. Forrest Dudley wrote in, I worked as a caregiver in a private assisted living facility and was told to ignore a woman screaming for help from her room. She needed memory care but was never transferred because they wanted the income. You guys got it right, unfortunately. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, a lot more stories.
Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is working with a Florida-based investor to push pro-Trump conservative propaganda through children's books. And there's also a financial scam involved in the equation, because of course there is. I mean, we're talking about right-wingers here. Stay tuned for that element of the story. I'll get to that a little later. But let me give you the details about the indoctrination that's taking place. While, let me remind you, conservatives would have you believe that it's the left that's indoctrinating children with critical race theory and things that aren't actually happening in grade schools. Now, the recent Kids Guide to Cancel Culture and Freedom of Speech promises to help families fight narrow-minded educators and school boards and walk children through the evils of cancel culture, something that, quote, happens when the media bans people who don't agree with their views. Now, remember, we just showed you a video of Newsmax kicking a war veteran off their air because he had a mild critique of the Trump administration. So just keep that in mind, okay? Now, then there's the Kids Guide to Media Bias and Fake News, which warns children that the media is biased against faith in God, lower taxes, smaller government, and the right to bear arms. Meanwhile, the Kids Guide to Fighting Socialism teaches them that rich people already share their wealth by spending money to buy goods and services.
Well, are they not merciful? Okay, I mean, they're literally doing propaganda on behalf of the rich to kids.
Yeah, to kids. These are kids.
They're like, oh, can you believe Obama's doing indoctrination of kids by having them learn things? On the other hand, you should learn that rich people are awesome. And every once in a while, they buy crap from you, okay? You should like it and know your role. This is the stuff they're teaching kids.
The rich already share their wealth through their consumerism.
Oh.
I thought it was gonna go in the direction of like maybe charity, right?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, they're gonna mention charity or mutual aid. That's what they always love to cite. But like Huckabee's like, no, why even go there? They buy stuff for themselves. That's how they help the community out.
I mean, they buy yachts, they buy mansions, and you guys are still complaining? Okay, little kids, shut up and know your role, okay? Keep working for them.
So what I love is the company, like in their marketing materials, are like, we teach kids things that they don't learn in school. Gee, I wonder why they don't teach this type of curriculum in schools. But to give you a little taste, a visual, if you will, of the type of garbage that children are taught in these ridiculous propaganda books, here is a video from Learn Our History, US History Videos for Kids.
The American founders invoked our Creator 4 times in the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Our religious liberty is enshrined in the very First Amendment in the Bill of Rights.
God figures into all things and is the basis for our precious freedom.
Values of love, charity, and faith built this nation.
What terrible ends would we suffer without God's daily guidance?
But our media culture often mocks and demeans people of faith.
The truth is that God and religion had very little impact on the formation of America and even less on what the country has become.
Our nation today is divided. It will be our faith in God, in His teachings, in each other that will lead us back to unity. In America, we don't worship government, we worship God.
In America, where our Constitution says there's a separation of church and state, we worship God.
It says you shall not establish a religion. It's not unclear, right? But I mean, look, every part of this is hilarious. First of all, they're like, can you believe they're not teaching this in schools? And would they have this dweeby professor-looking dude from Brooklyn? Like, actually, the Constitution says that we should not establish a religion. They're like, get a load of this guy, loser, read the Constitution, dweeb, nerd, read the Constitution. Now, you should know that the Constitution was actually based on the Bible. Now, that's not true, but it feels true and it feels good, so let's teach the kids that.
Oh my God, listen, it's so ridiculous.
I'm sorry, Anna, I just wanted to point that last part out too. And they're like, we could bring this country back together with Confederate generals? Like, wait, why are we bringing the country back together with the Confederates? Didn't they attack us and kill hundreds of thousands of Americans? Aren't they traitors? They're like, no, and now for the good guys, the Confederates. I can't believe they're not teaching this in school.
No, I mean, look, it's so ridiculous that I want to read you a comment from a conservative Christian who actually thought like, oh, this might be good, and got tricked into buying this stuff. She's like, her name's Laura. She's like, I was in shock that they're still in business. The first thing that struck me was how crappy the graphics were. They were just trying too hard to relate to kids. I did not agree with even the history they were trying to teach. The way it was skewed, I remember wondering, is that even true? No, Laura, it's not true. Go with your gut, girl. I believe in you. I believe in you. Yeah. But what Laura also didn't know, which she didn't expect, was that there's like a scam involved as well. Because at first they offer you the books or whatever for free, and then without letting you know or without making it clear, they start charging your account more than $20 a month. And it's like, what are you doing? So let me give you the details on that. The Kids Guide to President Trump is available in a free Patriotic Kids gift bundle that promises to help your kids and grandkids learn the truth about President Trump. The bundle walks kids through Trump campaign pledges to stop radical, it like literally teaches kids hate, right? Stop radical Islamic terrorism and teaches children how Trump wanted to prevent dangerous people from coming via illegal immigration and building a giant wall. So again, what ends up happening is they'll see that it's free. They'll be like, all right, what do I got to lose, right? So they have to sign up, obviously, to get the free stuff. Then they get the free stuff, and without expecting it, their account gets charged more than $20 a month, $20.90 specifically monthly. Despite the parents' complaints, they continued that business practice.
So there's three elements to this story. One is a scam, and so the recharging people after some free thing is to me is less of an issue, although they're very enraged by it, the people who were getting charged, because they apparently were not sufficiently warned. But there's a second portion where they did like these tuition points, and they tricked people into thinking that it was going to really be for college credit.
Yeah.
And then they shut down the website. Like people are complaining, wait, I can't get college credit for this. Nobody's taking it. Not even the religious schools are taking this. So how do I complain? They're like, oh, I got a good idea. If we shut down the website, you won't be able to complain. That's unbelievable. So that's like these guys are total scammers, right? So, and by the way, are there any laws in this country anymore? Or can you just rob people? Just lie to them, rob them. They go, oh yeah, tuition points gonna count for college. Just kidding, shut down the website. There's no law, I'm a right-wing Christian. So the cops will never hold me accountable. Okay, so that's portion one. Portion two is the funny stuff. Like in there's the kids, now you know you have a right to bear arms. Why are we telling 7-year-olds that? Like, okay, that part is true, there's a Second Amendment right to bear arms, but why are we trying to indoctrinate like elementary school kids, junior high school kids? We're like, now remember the guns, everybody remember the guns, okay? But and by the way, another one was, you're not going to get this stuff in the mainstream media, in regular textbooks, and they're keeping away your opportunity to lower taxes.
Oh my God, I know. Can you imagine like a fourth grader like lower taxes?
Okay.
What does that mean?
Wait, I have to lower taxes on the rich, and that's what I'm supposed to be learning? They're like, exactly, because this is exactly what propaganda and indoctrination is. But the third part is actually really disturbing. That's the one that Anna just read you. So there's one is they talk about the radicalization of Muslims, stop radical Islamic terrorism. Now, one, why are we telling again young kids about Islamic terrorism? Is there something they could do? So in the rare cases where there is Islamic terrorism, can they go out there and rush over to Kandahar or something? No, you want to teach them 9/11? That's part of American history, of course, right? But no, the point here is indoctrinate them into thinking all Muslims are bad. The only context they're seeing Muslims in is they're radicals and they're terrorists.
And also immigrants and
guys, this is not new. This is what they did to the Jews in Nazi Germany. Yes, I said it because that's exactly what happened. And they're the outsiders, they're terrible, they're not like the other humans. But if you think that what they say about Muslims is not bad, you're wrong, but listen to what they said about Latinos, basically, Latino immigrants. That's the target here. Prevent dangerous people from coming through illegal immigration. So they're telling these young kids, immigrants are dangerous. They're dangerous kinds of people. And you've got the rich are great and their taxes should be lower, but those brown people, the Muslims and the Mexicans, they're your enemies. This is disgusting. And he does it for a profit motive, and he does it for propaganda, and we're all supposed to take it. That's the part that bothers me. There's this fragility of white supremacy where they say, okay, now I'm gonna indoctrinate kids into hating you. Look, I'm Muslim, my family's Muslim. I'm atheist now, but I grew up Muslim. And they're teaching all these kids in Arkansas, and a public school actually bought this crap, right? They're teaching all of them. And they did $5 million.
You are a dangerous man, Jake.
Well, I'm dangerous to them politically.
Establishment things. Yeah, exactly.
But They spent $5 million in ads apparently on Facebook, so that means they did more than $5 million in business. That means a lot of people bought this. So they're spreading this poison everywhere, saying if that guy's Muslim, you should hate him. If that guy's Mexican, you should hate him. And that's a sick, sick thing to do. And no, we're not gonna stand for it. You're a racist and you're a bigot, and I don't care how much you cry about that. You're telling people that we're evil and we're terrible, and then we're supposed to care about your feelings? That when we accurately call out what a racist bigot you are, Mike Huckabee, you racist monster.
I mean, look, get race out of it for a second and just think about how fragile they are in general. Remember, you have the White House Correspondents' Dinner where a comedian, her name escapes me at the moment, makes fun of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, her lies, and her eyeshadow. And like for a week straight, it was like, can you believe a comedian made a joke about Sarah Huckabee Sanders? It's unbelievable. It's like, they're just fragile, period. Everything that they say, whether it's in regard to corruption, indoctrination, or their talking points about how the left is full of snowflakes. I mean, come on. They're the snowflakes. Like it's incredible how sensitive they are.
They are, and they don't. And their hatred is so overwhelming that they find it to be normal. They're like, well, let's teach young kids that immigrants are quote dangerous people, and they go, what hatred?
Yeah.
What? I get to say awful things about you. I get to call you a terrorist. I get to call you dangerous. I get to call you a criminal. I get to call you all these terrible things and poison the minds of young Americans. But if you complain about it, how dare you?
Yep.
I don't get to be racist anymore? I don't get to be a bigot anymore? Oh, this is cancel culture. By the way, it's not. Your books are available. And by the way, one last thing, Dr. Seuss should sue the living crap out of them. It's a total copy of Dr. Seuss on the cover and talking about the cat in the MAGA hat. You should sue them into oblivion. And then Mike, when you complain about that, I'll say, #capitalism. I read it in your books.
By the way, Michelle Wolf was the comedian who made fun of Sarah Huckabee Sanders and hurt her feelings. So that was a great moment. Anyway, we should probably take another break because when we come back, we've got a ton of fun video to show you, including a washed up comedian on Tucker Carlson's show getting completely enraged over the fact that the anti-vaxxed individuals are being covered in a negative light. So we'll respond to that. We'll have a little bit of fun and we'll be right back.
All right, so don't forget tomorrow, Power Panel, first hour is me, Francesca Fiorentini, and Nina Turner, the Nina Turner. She's gonna be on the Power Panel tomorrow, and then second hour is the Jackson Hour. It's time for Action Jackson. J.R. Jackson and Jackson White join me, so don't miss that. And by the way, also tomorrow, after Indisputable, catch Galaxy Brain with Ben Carollo on twitch.tv/TYT. Ben's awesome, check it out, I think you'll really enjoy it. All right, we go to our members, Perpendicular Time Rodent. I'm 100% certain there are Nazi indoctrination materials that we can dig up that mirror this, taking all the masks off. Yes, Hammer Dan says, how many scams is Huckabee running simultaneously? He's everywhere hawking some dubious project or product. Yes, because they don't care about anything. Mike Huckabee doesn't have any morals at all. No morals. He's like, oh, forget calling immigrants, and that's code word for Latinos. I'm an immigrant too, but they don't mean me in that case. They mean Latinos.
They mean you too.
Okay, well, I mean, sure, but generally brown people,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, yeah, while I'm not spreading, horribly racist propaganda against them, I'm ripping off my own fans. My fans who trust in me. Oh, you'll get college credit, tuition points, etc. Look at these suckers. They believe me. So I'm gonna rob them. He doesn't rob the left-wingers, he robs the right-wingers. So that's who Mike Huckabee is. What's the antimatter writes in? This is why you have to teach your kids to be critical thinkers. Exactly. Yeah. On Super Chat, LJ Wombology writes in, Stitch feels Freudian slip of I'm already weak.
Yeah,
I'm already low on time. No, that's such a good point.
Yep.
No, I missed that. And so LJ, nice job in catching.
So weak.
He said that dude was totally triggered at the mere suggestion that Trump is weak. Keep on keeping on, TYT. JR wrote in, not that one, a different JR. Corruption and greed is literally killing us. It's just a matter of time before corruption and greed will affect you personally, if not already. Gross. That's true. Becca Daly says, the truth is no billionaire wants to create more billionaires. They just get their wealth by underlings struggling to become one. Good lesson, kids. Now I'm going to Twitch. Lorana MC writes in, 6 months of news that, while depressing, lets me know that there are others out there who see what's going on. Love my Dragon and TYT family. More Bezos bucks, thank you. Intersectional Dragon writes in, years watching TYT, but started Twitch 7 months ago. Had my wisdom tooth out today, but I'm here. Thanks for being there, you all. I count on TYT and look forward to it when there doesn't seem to be much else to look forward to. Well, we appreciate you being with us. Dave Schmidt gifted 2 subs, and RC Tycoon wrote in, Bezos bucks because I don't want to be Trump's friend anymore. Back on TYT, Cenk Uygur is sparing with you guys. Also, the news forward.
All right, so Tucker Carlson invited a comedian named Jim Breuer on his program to discuss the endless debate regarding coronavirus vaccines. It got a little off the rails. We've got lots to show you, so let's start with the first video.
I got a lot of feedback from a couple venues that I was playing, and my fans were really upset. They said, I'm not comfortable with getting a COVID shot, and now they're saying I can't come see you perform unless I do that. And I looked into it, and that's the last thing you should be doing, is going, hey, you want to come see the, like feeding the seal the fish. Hey, you want to come see a concert? You want to here, catch the fit. Why would you do that? Why would you? I don't want any of my fans forced to come laugh, and they got to get a shot in them.
Is he like referring to his fans as seals? Like, is he it seems like he's mocking his fans.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know this dude. I think he did Goat Boy on SNL. So I think he mainly does animal sounds for a living.
Oh, it's
so that's
cool.
that's the right wing's idea of like a top shelf comedian. So he had to go to an animal sound for some reason. It doesn't really quite make sense. And he seems genuinely flummoxed. So like, why are they doing this, man? Just because we're gonna all get in a room and we're gonna laugh, theoretically, and we're gonna be all next to each other without masks and vaccines. It seems like that would be the perfect place to catch coronavirus. So I don't know why they're doing this.
No.
And then Tucker Carlson's like this. He does the Tucker Carlson look, and then goes, exactly.
Yeah, no, that was actually my favorite moment because he did the exactly after he did the seal sounds, and I feel like it was this like almost like a instinctual react, like it looked like he was uncomfortable and just said exactly like
reflexively, yeah.
Yeah, can we actually watch that again? Because like pay close attention to Tucker Carlson. He actually looks visibly uncomfortable.
I got a lot of feedback from a couple venues that I was playing, and my fans were really upset. They said, you know, I'm not comfortable with getting a COVID shot, and now they're saying I can't come see you perform unless I do that. And I looked into it, and that's the last thing you should be doing, is going, hey, you want to come see like feeding the seal the fish. Hey, you want to come see a concert? Or you want to here, catch the fit. Why would you do that? Why would you? I don't want. You want to come see a concert? Or you want to here, catch the fit. You want to come see a concert? Or you want to here, catch the fit. Why would you do that? Why would you? I don't want any of my fans.
Okay, Tucker's amazing, because how does he hold that pose for that long? That's the other thing. Like that. But he does accurately represent the rest of us in that context. It was like,
yeah.
And the comedian dude, what's with his head? Oh, let me tell you something, okay?
No, he's fidgety. He seems like a fidgety guy.
And then they say, come here. Yeah. Anyway, we got more clips.
We do. I know. Like that was the tip of the iceberg. So, then they get into this back and forth about how much they want to be part of the Oppression Olympics, while claiming that they, conservatives do not like the Oppression Olympics. But wouldn't you know, the people who are actually the most harmed in this country are those who refuse to get vaccinated during a global pandemic. Let's watch.
There's a new narrative. And the new narrative is the unvaccinated are the beast. Kill the beast. This program goes on forever. Kill the beast. The beast is the unvaccinated. Kill them. And when our leader put that out there and pointed the finger like we're the demons, I'm not vaccinated. I had COVID. You're not going to tell me about my body. I know my body. I know my morals. I know my faith. You don't come telling me and threaten me and everyone else as if we're the demons.
Exactly.
Now I'm worried I'm going to start watching Tucker's show just to hear him say exactly at the most absurd times. Look, guys, now the sad part of the story is, like, I watched this clip and I thought, we say sometimes, oh, that's idiotic and stuff. It's an easy thing to say. But that guy's genuinely unintelligent. And it feels awkward saying it, but he just literally doesn't understand anything. He's like, so now we're the ones spreading disease, and they say we're the bad guys.
Yeah, well, look.
That's why. It's not that hard to understand. And so you could at least say, hey, I get where they're coming from. They're worried about a contagious disease, but I have my freedoms, but. But he just seems to genuinely, like, they say, oh, kill the beast. And then Tucker goes, exactly. When did they say that?
No, it's no one, I mean, that is absurd. No one's talked about, like, physically harming unvaccinated people. In fact, the whole point of encouraging people to get vaccinated is so they don't end up hospitalized or dying from the vaccine, right? And look, I don't know anything about this comedian, and I have, and this sounds insulting, but I don't mean it to be. Like, I actually have lower standards for people who aren't politicians and who aren't members of the media. And the reason why is because, to be fair, there's a ton of disinformation out there about the vaccine, right? So he's a comedian, right? It's not his job, like, to do all the medical research and all the research necessary to decipher what's right and what's wrong, right? You're supposed to have responsible media coverage, and unfortunately that's not what we've had in this country, because COVID has turned into a culture war issue, which, as you can see, Tucker Carlson has really capitalized on, and it's unfortunate. With that said, though, like, the thing that's been kind of frustrating as I've made the awful decision to interact with anti-vaccine people on Twitter is that they keep going back to this talking point about, like, oh yeah, well, the vaccine's ineffective because when you're vaccinated, you can still get sick with COVID. And it's like, no, okay, it's true, breakthrough infections do in fact happen. We can acknowledge that. But if you get a breakthrough infection, you are far less likely to be hospitalized or far less likely to die from coronavirus. So when you have mask mandates, even today, it's because you want to ensure that if the people who are vaccinated end up getting a breakthrough infection, they're not transmitting the virus to people who are unvaccinated, who have a higher likelihood of getting hospitalized and dying. And he talks about how we're not the bad guys, like they keep making us out to be the bad guys. I get that you don't want to be judged, but I wonder if he's aware of the fact that hospitals are at capacity and are literally rejecting people who are trying to come, who have their own medical emergencies, not COVID related, and can't get the care they need because there aren't any hospital beds available.
So the guy who is aware, of course, is Tucker.
He is aware of that.
Yeah, and he doesn't care at all. And so, look, the reason I say the guy is just not that bright is he's like, look, man, I didn't take the vaccine and I got COVID. Help me understand how that proves your point. It doesn't really prove your point. Then he goes to, well, look, I didn't die is presumably where he's getting.
Yeah, that's what he's trying to say.
And he's like, I know my own body. But he doesn't grasp that that's anecdotal. And he doesn't grasp that, yes, most people don't die, but an alarming percentage of people do die. And that's why we've had over 650,000 dead. Yes, congratulations, you're not one of them. I'm happy you're not one of them. But that doesn't prove that COVID doesn't kill people or that you don't need the vaccine.
Right.
Later in the interview, he talked about, I know the breakthrough cases. I know guys who were vaccinated and got COVID anyway. And did they survive? Yes, they did. Now, again, that's still anecdotal, even though it's on our side. So you look at the numbers and you see that unvaccinated people die at 11 times the rate of the vaccinated.
Right.
So that's a fact, but he wants people to come to his comedy show and he doesn't want to be vaccinated. So he just goes and pushes this agenda out there because it's me. They're super selfish.
That's American
and if you call them out on it, they cry and cry and cry.
But that is American culture, right? Individualism. So it's really difficult to get people to think about how this is a public safety, public health issue. Meaning that it's about the community, it's about the country, it's about everyone living in it. It's not about the individual. It's about coming together to ensure that as few people die as possible, right? I mean, we have failed significantly on that effort. But don't worry, because Brewer actually does have a plan for avoiding COVID. Let's hear what it is.
I have 2 close friends right now, fully vaccinated, and they got COVID.
Yeah.
And they're both sick. So this is not about safety, because if it was, just like you said and I said in my video, eat more fruit, take care of your body, go to the gym. I've been saying that forever.
That's right, everybody. If you eat more kumquats, you'll be fine. You don't have to worry about COVID. Just eat more.
But they do. They genuinely believe it. They think, well, since I survived and I eat a lot of fruit, if you go to the fruit and you work out, those 650,000 people wouldn't have died. It's not how it works. Everybody has different bodies, and you could actually, in some cases, be in great shape and still die anyway. But nope, he doesn't get it, and he's never gonna get it, and all he's gonna be is selfish, and Tucker Carlson is gonna go, exactly.
All right, one more story, and yes, we do have an update on Nicki Minaj. I hope this is the last one, but we gotta do it, So, the Nicki Minaj swollen testicles saga continues, and it's taken a pretty dark turn. Something that she has referred to as Ballgate. Now let's begin with the tweet that started it all. She said, my cousin in Trinidad won't get the coronavirus vaccine because his friend got it and became impotent, his testicles became swollen, his friend was weeks away from getting married, now the girl called off the wedding. So just pray on it and make sure you're comfortable with your decision, not bullied, okay? So, we've talked a lot about how those claims are unfounded, and we've talked about how right-wing media has exploited that for their culture war angle to the coronavirus pandemic, which is unfortunate. But what about the health minister for Trinidad? He actually weighed in on this, and let's hear what he had to say.
Claims are being made. One of the reasons we could not respond yesterday in real time to Ms. Minaj is that we had to check and make sure that what she was claiming was either true or false. We And unfortunately, we wasted so much time yesterday running down this false claim. It is, as far as we know, at this point in time, there has been no such reported either side effect or adverse event. And what was sad about this is that it wasted our time yesterday trying to track down, because we take all these claims seriously, whether it's on social media or mainstream media. As we stand now, there is absolutely no reported such side effect or adverse event of testicular swelling in Trinidad, or I dare say, Dr. Hines, anywhere else? None that we know of anywhere else in the world. So that's a claim.
All right. So abundantly clear. I mean, like,
can I jump in?
Yes.
This world is amazing because Nicki Minaj does a tweet, and then the government of Trinidad has to say there are no swollen balls.
No,
as far as we know, there are no swollen balls in Trinidad or in the rest of the world. This is not a thing.
No, it gets crazier, right? Because it's not just the government of Trinidad; it's also the White House who's had to get involved in this.
Yeah.
So Nicki Minaj also tweeted that the White House has invited me, and I think it's a step in the right direction. Yes, I'm going. I'll be dressed in all pink like Legally Blonde so they know I mean business. I'll ask questions on behalf of the people who have been made fun of for simply being human. #Ballgate Day 3. So it turns out that the White House did not invite her, okay? They responded to that. Soon afterwards, the White House said that it had not, in fact, invited Minaj to visit the White House. But as we have with others, we offered a call with Minaj and one of our doctors to answer questions she has about the safety and effectiveness of the vaccine. And that's according to a White House spokesperson who spoke to the Daily Beast. Now, following that fact check, Nicki Minaj became a little, irritable, I guess, if you wanna consider that. She tweeted, do you all think that I would lie about being invited to the effing White House? Yes, yeah, I do think that you would. Now, with that said though, in a White House press conference today, Joe Biden was asked about Ballgate. It's insane, let's watch.
God bless you all, may God protect our troops, thank you.
Mr. President, what kind of impact does it have when celebrities like Nicki Minaj share dubious claims?
I mean, look, I actually think that was a perfectly fine question. I wish he would have answered it, but it's just, it's interesting that, like, go ahead.
No, I mean, I don't agree. We're in the year 2021 and reporters are shouting at the president. Mr. President, do you have a comment on Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's balls?
I know, but that's not what the question was. It was a question about how that kind of misinformation, whether that type of misinformation has been harmful.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Mr. President, hey, do you have any comment on the enlarged balls? We're worried about the enlarged balls in Trinidad. Do you have any comment? Okay, so and now everybody's in on it. Hassan Piker is in on it, former TYT host.
Yeah, Hassan Piker's in on it. So, by the way, the reason why I think I don't put it past Nicki Minaj to lie is because she also lied about being censored on Twitter, which didn't actually happen. She claimed that her Twitter account had been suspended after sharing a clip of Tucker Carlson's show, but Twitter said the social media company did not take any enforcement action on the account referenced. So that's a little weird. And by the way, now since Tucker Carlson's supporting her, Nicki Minaj is like, Tucker Carlson's great. And people are calling her out on that because Tucker Carlson's a white nationalist. Hassan Piker happens to be one of the people who tweeted that. You know he's a white nationalist, right? And she didn't like that. Right, I can't speak to, agree with, or even look at someone from a particular political party. People aren't human anymore. If you're black and a Democrat tells you to shove marbles up your ass, you simply have to.
Incorrect.
If another party tells you to look out for that bus, stand there and get hit. Okay.
Yeah, no, as Haas pointed out in later tweets, he calls out Democrats and Republicans just the same, and so do we. It's not about political parties, and nobody's asking you to get hit by a bus or to enlarge your testicles.
Or do that thing with marbles.
Right.
Very creative.
But be a little bit careful who you're backing and who's coming to your aid, right? They don't care about you. And so I'm conflicted about Nicki Minaj because I like her balls to the wall attitude, if you will, but she's gotta get somebody to actually help her with getting the correct information, because that stuff isn't true.
Yeah.
And that's a big, big difference. All right, we gotta go. For the members, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens support rapper community. It's a hilarious story. TYT.com/join. Hit the join button below if you're watching on YouTube. Members, we'll see you in a minute.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
What's happening? I'm Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey right here on TYT. Let me tell you what we do on Indisputable. We go beyond the headline. We make sure that you know the full context of the story. And we also highlight issues that are important to the everyday person. We're talking about criminal justice reform. We're talking about the climate. We're talking about what's happening right in your local community. We also highlight very important issues that are affecting all of us, like the economy, jobs, and we engage in transparent debates with people who may not think like me. We're living in a current social atmosphere where opinions are represented as facts and lies are represented as truth. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm new to TikTok, but about 3 years ago, I started my daily political news show, The Damage Report, because I noticed this trend where every morning I was waking up to this tsunami of news that was just generally dreadful and horrifying and shocking, and I thought that if I could spend my time helping people to navigate this, serving as a bit of a life raft, pointing out which news is important and why, there are worse ways to spend your day. We're not an average news show, and we don't want our TikTok presence to be average either, so feel free to let us know what you'd like us to do on the platform, and maybe give us a follow at The Damage Report.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Hey everyone, Mateo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book, definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Mr. President, what kind of impact does it have when when celebrities like Nicki Minaj share dubious claims?
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. It's called a bonus episode because it's a bonus for you guys, the members.
It's true.
It's true, but it is. You know, if you think the show is fun, wait till you get a load of the bonus episode. I tell you, even though you've already gotten a load of the bonus episode, you're members. All right, so forward.
Candace Owens has decided to essentially join forces with Tucker Carlson in lauding the efforts of Nicki Minaj to spread disinformation about the coronavirus vaccine. All of a sudden, conservatives who have had nothing positive to say about rappers suddenly have clear admiration for people like Nicki Minaj. So without further ado, let's take a look at Tucker Carlson's conversation with Candace Owens.
Right, to see someone who's not afraid in America. There's still a few. I guess it's left to a rapper from Queens, but good for her.
Right, it is good for her. And you know, these are the people, by the way, that when they're running, they go around and they get them to endorse them, right? They go around to Cardi B, they go around to Nicki Minaj, and they try to get them to speak on behalf of them. And Nicki Minaj is not playing that game with them. And now people are seeing in real time what these elitists actually think of them. Look at the way they spoke down to her. She's stupid. The headlines were insane, denigrating her because at the end of the day, what they actually think, the Democrats, is that these people are stupid. They like to come around every 4 years for the votes, but at the end of the day, they think Nicki Minaj and all rappers are very stupid.
I don't, what?
Yeah, so let me try to break this down. First of all, quick aside here on Tucker Carlson, of all people, to tell them the truth, a rapper from Queens. Yeah, why wouldn't it be a rapper from Queens? They get to be unvarnished, so they're more likely to have some raw truth in their music. But apparently that's like bewildering to Tucker while he's pretending to be a friend of the rappers now. Okay, and when I think rapper community, I think Tucker Carlson. So then Candace Owens comes in with this incredibly ironic take. They're like, oh, they take it for granted, and then they use them, and then they call them stupid. And can you believe how, but wait a minute, are they taking them for granted? It sounds actually like they're being principled. They're saying, hey, even though you might be on our side, we're gonna call you out anyway because you've got misinformation there. Would Tucker Carlson do that? Candace Owens? Would any Republican do that? Hey, you know, Trump's on our side, but he's actually wrong about this. I've never seen it, right? So it's actually what they do that she's projecting onto folks. In fact, Joy Reid, again, I'm no friend of Joy Reid, very literally, but she said, hey, listen, I care about you, I'm a fan of yours, but this isn't right. That's actually principled.
Yeah, I just think it's funny how conservatives will use specific people for their little culture war issues, right? And then pretend like they're like standing for like rappers in this case, when in reality, like conservatives have nothing positive to say about rap music or rappers themselves. I was trying to find the details. I think I remember it correctly, but several years ago, there was a magazine cover featuring Nicki Minaj that was incredibly risque. And the conservatives, like their heads exploded about it. Like they could not believe it, like how dare she? So like it spared me the, oh no, we think Nicki Minaj is super smart and we love her and good for her. I guarantee you, if she said one negative thing about either Donald Trump or woke Nicki Minaj, woke, it's like she's helping them with their culture war right now. And so it's like perfect rapper, perfect person with a platform to exploit so we can keep the culture war going. And I wanna remind you of specific instances where conservatives said some pretty awful things about rappers and the rap community. Remember when Common, the rapper Common, was invited to the White House? I remember that was a huge controversy. This was during the Obama administration. After the Chicago rapper Common was invited to a poetry event night at the White House organized by Michelle Obama, Fox News labeled him a vile rapper on their website.
Now they're friend of rappers.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah, they love the rap community, right? Common is like the most benign rapper there is. And they're like, look at this black guy who's a vile rapper, okay?
Right, but they get to like whatever's convenient for their culture war in that moment. So in that moment, it was convenient to be anti-rapper for their culture war. In this moment, it's super convenient for them to be pro-rapper.
Anna, can you imagine if we were as absurd as them?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, because Nicki Minaj said something we don't agree with, we're like, you know what, rap is a problem in America.
Yeah.
Okay, it's really polluting our culture. We're against rap. Like, what a weird stance. No, we just happen to disagree with one thing Nicki Minaj said. But Anna's right, for them, who cares about consistency?
Totally.
Who cares what I said yesterday? It doesn't matter. My audience is a bunch of schmucks. They'll believe anything I say. They'll even believe that I'm really into rap. If Tucker Carlson's into rap, and look, he really likes rappers. Come on.
And I don't think Nicki Minaj is dumb, right? I think Nicki Minaj is naive because she thinks that a guy who very likely has an STD and very likely lied to his fiance about it and blamed it on the vaccine.
I had not thought of that.
Genuinely thinks it was because of the vaccine. And look, it's okay. We all have our naive moments. And obviously I'm speculating here, but whatever was going on with that dude, it was not the vaccine, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had not thought of that angle, but it's definitely not the vaccine. We know that.
Right.
There's no reported instance of that. But look, there is one thing, like, I think I do this with the right wing sometimes, and I like Anna said it earlier in the show, and it's a really good point. If you're not a politician and you're not a media figure like Tucker Carlson, etc., we have to try hard to be more open-minded to people. It's not their job, and I say this too, they're not, if you're a plumber, you're a dentist, you're an accountant, it's not your job to follow politics or science or medicine. Now, I know obviously it's a giant issue, and if you're a big celebrity like Nicki Minaj, unfortunately you do have more responsibility, and that's kind of a pain in the ass, but you do, right? Because now everybody's worried about their balls, because Nicki Minaj had one tweet, right? And now ironically, Republicans are thinking, should I try rap? Like all of these consequences that are, this is, Brett in the morning meeting was talking about the butterfly effect here, right? One guy cheats on his fiance, gets swollen balls in Trinidad. And now we have to convince millions of people it doesn't lead to swollen balls.
It's the global economy, what can I say?
And reporters are shouting questions to the president. Would you have a comment on Nicki Minaj's cousin's friend's balls? Right? That's what we've, so that's why I love her unrestrained attitude, and yes, I can like her music, I can like her attitude in general and say that particular comment is wrong, and then some follow comments are wrong. But everything in America just becomes tribal instantly.
Totally.
And the right wing then switches tribes depending on what's convenient.
Also, look, I have one final piece of evidence to bolster our claims in this story. So I'm gonna go to the last graphic here, and it is a tweet, a notorious tweet from Ben Shapiro, because this is what conservatives tend to really think about rap and rap music, rappers and rap music. Fact, rap music isn't music. And if you think it is, you're stupid.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Unless it's Kanye West and he's trying to take away Democratic votes in 2020, then we really like rap music.
Totally.
And unless it's Nicki Minaj talking about swollen balls, we really like swollen balls. And her music, Kanye, now officially we're going backwards, music. But every other black person, I mean rap, I mean the things in your culture and your community that you care deeply about that we white right-wing conservatives don't care about at all is not music.
It's stupid.
Okay, it's stupid. You're stupid for caring about it. Oh, the police abuse you all the time and you sing about it like we're supposed to care? No, we sent them to do that. That's why we don't care, and it's not music. Now all of a sudden though, all of them, they're just.
They love Nicki Minaj.
Oh my God, they can't stop it. Ice Cube was in the Raiders game, right? That's why half the stands was right wingers, because they love rap music now.
All right. We're done with that story. Okay, now it's time for some free flowing.
So free flow, here we go.
Because you mentioned.
Spin the records, okay.
You mentioned Ben Shapiro, and yesterday was Wednesday, which means you were doing business stuff, like you weren't on the show.
Business.
So I wonder if you came across this, but don't worry if you haven't, I'll give you the details. Ben Shapiro, there was a model at the Met Gala who wore a top that said "Peg the patriarchy," and and Ben Shapiro was very triggered by that. And so
Ben, she's not. Why? Why did you take it personally?
No, it gets better.
Okay,
it gets better.
You guys know what pegging is? Okay.
No, it gets better. Okay, so he can't help himself. Like he keeps I don't know, creating situations for himself where he has no choice but to talk about sex, and he's super awkward anytime he talks about sex. So he described pegging as,
oh no.
You know, when the woman is, very aggressively having the sex with the man, like something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but
well, I suppose it's aggressive.
But like he didn't say, when the woman wears a dildo and gives it to the guy in his anus. Like that's not what
he did not say that.
No, he's just like.
So that is the technical definition. But
when a woman very aggressively has sex with the guy, and it's like,
look, first of all, his audience knows. Trust me. There's. He wrote a book against porn. Didn't work. Didn't stick. Okay. So there's some folks in the pegging community, no judgment in that audience. Trust me. Okay, but for the dorks in his audience who don't know, okay.
Oh my God, we have the video.
Oh, we have the video.
Ashwari, I love you. Okay, let's go to the video.
And then we had Cara Delevingne, and I may be screwing up her name, but frankly, I don't care because I really don't know very much who she is. Apparently, she's some sort of model. And here she was modeling a bib/straitjacket. I don't know what this top is supposed to be. And it says, "Peg the patriarchy." Oh, the courage. Oh, the stunning courage and bravery. Peg the patriarchy. Because pegging, of course, is an obscure sexual practice in which women perform the more aggressive sexual act on men. Peg the patriarchy, right? Which, yeah. And she's pegging the patriarchy by being a model for the pleasure of men, generally speaking. And also, she's pegging the patriarchy by wearing scantily clad outfits that say this. And the patriarchy is quaking in its boots, let me tell you. Wow, the courage. By the way, where the patriarchy is actually dominant, you think a woman could wear this? So in Afghanistan right now, the patriarchy is pretty dominant. If Cara Delevingne walked out on the streets of Afghanistan.
Okay.
I just can't get it. It's an obscure sexual practice.
I don't know much about it. I've never heard about it. It's very obscure, but I've heard it's where the woman is being very aggressive. Okay, I've heard it. I wrote a whole book about it, but I'm just saying. I had to do a lot of research for that book, and that's where I ran across all of these obscure fetishes that I still have today. I mean, obscure and. But so what I was gonna say is that for the folks who don't know what it is in his audience, they're like, oh, the woman being more aggressive. That could be kind of interesting, right?
Everyone knows what pegging is.
You think so?
Except for maybe Ben Shapiro.
No, Ben Shapiro definitely knows.
So you think he intentionally described it that way? That it makes him so uncomfortable to talk about anal play that he like.
Oh, 100%.
Do you think that he would ever utter the words anal play?
Well, that is a very specific question.
Because he gets so uncomfortable with anything involving sex.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. It's really fun to watch it.
Oh, now they say this female genitalia is more liquid. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It's obscure. I've never seen it, but they say that there's liquid around it. I don't know who would see. I don't know what happened there. And yet these rappers are talking about it, which, by the way, rap, not real music. And patriarchy, maybe would enjoy the aggressive sex from the women.
Intimacy is a beautiful thing. It is. I feel bad that he's so uncomfortable about it. And look, I'm not saying free yourself and go sleep around. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying the mere discussion of intimacy. Intimacy or sex in culture, in music, in whatever, it makes him so, it reminds me of my dad, who, by the way, let me tell you a story about my dad, okay? Fun story about my dad. My dad is the kind of old school father who if we're, family's watching a movie and then a couple starts kissing, he'd be like, what is this? Turn this off, I can't, there's a word in Armenian which means anamot, which means like shame on you, like, oh, this is, shameful, whatever. And like, so it's weird because now I'm an adult and obviously like I feel open, I feel free, like I'm not like, holding back or anything. But now, specifically when I'm watching movies or TV shows where people get intimate, I get uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, am I anamot for watching this right now, right? but what's really, really funny is one time, it was really late at night. This is obviously when I'm still living with my parents. My dad's like up at night watching a movie. And there was an intimate scene. He didn't feel anamot, he didn't turn it off, he kept watching it. And I busted into the living room and I was like, anamot.
Oh, Jesus.
You better watch.
Anna
watch
doing
out.
investigative journalism since she was a kid. Okay. I caught you, Dad, all right?
Yeah.
So let's note for the record that anamot is an awesome word. Like, oh, that's anamot. It sounds kind of fun, right? So yes, for now with my kids, whenever anybody kisses in a movie, we're all like, ew, disgusting. And like Joy like covers her head and Pro used to do this, he doesn't anymore.
I think like the kiss, who cares about the kiss? I don't know. I'm not a parent. I don't know what that's like. So
no,
do you, boo?
It doesn't matter at all. I encourage it just because it's fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, and I say, disgusting. And Joy's like, yeah, it's disgusting. Why do they have to do that? I'm like, right, Joy, exactly. Why do they have to?
Pro, it's totally fine, right?
Yeah, I was anamot Pro, okay. I'm kidding. I don't do that. I do the same. They're both in the same room.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love watching stuff with the kids. So we were watching What If last night, and it's just great. There's nothing better than just hanging out on the couch. And then Pro is a master at tricking me to watch more stuff now. He's like a drug dealer, but with YouTube videos. He's like, Baba, we gotta watch The Explainer. I mean, you don't know what happened if we don't.
That is so cute.
He's like, look, they've got Easter eggs in there. Don't you want to know what the Easter eggs in the episode were? Oh, look, here's another one that explains how the 10 rings are involved. Don't you want to know how the 10 rings are involved?
You obviously do.
And then this morning he headlocked me. He did a Uyghur maneuver on Uyghur, okay, on me. And he got me to watch like 3 videos in a row. I'm like, what are you doing? I gotta read for the show. This is like, I never, like all I do is I work every minute of the day normally, right?
Yeah.
And he somehow Uyghur maneuvered me into like watching all this Marvel comic universe stuff in the morning.
Oh my God.
And Joy has the move and she goes, this is my signature move. And she cuddles up against me on the couch.
How to use her power.
Totally.
I love it.
And I'm like, stop, no. And she's like this on my shoulder and arm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, next video, let's watch.
You reminded me of something that's totally unrelated to what you just said, but I gotta share it. So I'm watching a show right now called Yellowstone. And
I was just in Yellowstone.
Yellowstone, this is not a spoiler, but there's a lot of like cowboy culture stuff in it that's like totally out of my world. And I love it. I love like, anyway, but I never really, have you ever really thought about what a rodeo is?
Oh man, the thought I've given to what rodeos really are.
But
sometimes I wake up at night, what are they?
No.
Okay.
No. Like, I've heard about rodeos, of course, but I've never like given any thought to like what a rodeo is. What happens at a rodeo? Like, what's the point of a rodeo? And so,
what's the point of a rodeo? It's a good question. I never thought about it either.
Right?
What is the point? Why are we here? Who wins? How do you win?
Elitists. That's what we are. We're just coastal. No, but dude. Rodeos are insane and super impressive. Okay? No, it's insane. Like, how do people not, like, how do cowboys not break their backs? Right? Because they get on, I think, they get on a horse. And I don't know what they do to the horse, but the horse is mad. Or I think it might be a bull.
Pretty sure it's a bull, Anna. It's called bull riding.
No, but I think they can do it on horses too.
Oh, they do horses as well. I see. But they definitely do bulls.
Yeah, by the way.
We're the worst. People that are like in that culture are like, look at these dorks. I believe they also do horses. I believe the rodeo community does that as well.
We deserve all the criticism. I accept it, okay? It's totally fine. No, but like, anyway, just understand, like, we live in a big country, and it's like I feel like there's a million countries within our country. So like, yeah, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I apologize for not knowing what a rodeo is, but now that I'm learning, dude, it's impressive, right? Because like in this case, I'm talking about a horse. I don't know what they do to the horse. The horse is irate. The horse is losing its mind.
I gotta get this son bitch off me, right?
Losing its mind. And like the cowboy is like, the whole point is to stay on the horse as it's losing its mind.
Yes, that is the point.
And as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, like my back is hurting watching it. Like head, back, everything is like flopping around. But like it's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
Yeah, let alone when they get thrown off. So I don't know all of the different events, right? But there's the one where you lasso the calf, I believe.
That's also impressive.
And then they tie him up, and they tie him up awfully quick, right? And there's bull riding, etc. Right? So do I know the general concept of a rodeo? Of course, right?
I had no idea.
Oh, you had no idea. Okay, well, but I view rodeo as similar to Cirque du Soleil.
Oh, okay.
And you might think like, really? How, right? Well, it's because it's both generally incredibly impressive athletic performances that I don't know why they're doing it. Like that I'm constantly asking why. Like on Cirque du Soleil, I was forced to go to several of their shows, and I mean that quite literally, forced. And I was very skeptical, and my skepticism was proven to be correct. So they'll come out and they'll like bounce around on unicycles, and there'll be like 20 of them, and they'll bounce, and you'll be like, how? And then they'll like switch seats or something. I mean, they'll do like amazing things, but the whole time, like there's this neon sign in my head going, why? Why?
It's art.
Why?
It's art.
Why are you bouncing around like that on a unicycle? I don't get it. And then they'll do some other weirdo thing and random.
I love Cirque du Soleil.
Oh,
I always watch a Cirque du Soleil show when I'm in Vegas. Always.
Okay, total waste of money. Okay, no. For me, everybody's different.
Dude, you're like my dad. I like bought Cirque du Soleil tickets for my parents. I'm like, I want them to go have a nice night out. He came back and he's like, in Armenia, much better acrobatics. This was nothing.
Oh, he went in a different direction. I thought he was going to say in Armenia we don't do acrobatics. This is silly. Okay. No, he's like, no, in Armenia we do better acrobatics.
Yeah, better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
My dad likes a soccer team, not because the soccer team is that great, but because there's like an Armenian guy on it, some guy named Mkhitaryan, who's like, I think on the final leg of his career is like soccer. I don't know.
The final leg of his career.
Right?
Oh, okay.
But yeah, my dad's got that pride, right?
Oh, of course, everybody does. Are you kidding me? If there's a Turkish guy on a team, I root more for him. Even me, and I'm like, I came here when I was 8. Anyways, no, but so the rodeo is the same thing. Like I see them, rope the calf, and I'm like, it's pretty good, but why? And then, okay, I rode a bull for 8 seconds. That's super impressive, but why? The bull clearly does not want you on him.
Yeah.
So I was in, but I like all the different cultures, and I like that people like it, whether it's Cirque du Soleil or rodeo, and I respect that. So when we were in Nashville with the guys a bunch of years back, actually in a lot of the southern states we've gone to, we'll get drunk and we'll see if we can find a mechanical bull somewhere, okay? And so I do it every time. And there's video of it.
No one wants the guys on the mechanical bull. I love that you're the group of dorks that go to the bar with the mechanical bull. And I'm sure everyone in there is like, get off the fucking bull, it's for the women.
No. Okay, no, people love us. No, listen. People are saying, I really like Cenk on that bull. Okay, no, yeah, I have a literal story from Nashville, from that same story, okay? So, okay, I don't know whether they like this on the bull or not, but we got wasted and we're on the bull, and then we took over the stage. They were doing karaoke in like a honky tonk, but it was kind of a big place. And so we got on there, and me and Steve O and Dave Kohler and some of the other guys from Jersey, and we started doing karaoke. We started going fucking nuts, and we're dancing like crazy and stuff. And we're like, I don't know if people thought we were crazy, fun, weirdos, hated us, loved us. I have no idea, right? So hours later, we're still blitzed and we're stumbling around the streets of Nashville. And this couple comes up to me, and I forget who was next to me, but we'd all splintered. We didn't know what the fuck was going on. We're so drunk. And so this couple comes up and goes, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, I know, Young Turks, right? And they're like, "No, you're that guy who was dancing at the honky tonk. You're amazing."
Oh my God, it's amazing. That is amazing.
He's like, "What's Young Turks?"
Nothing.
He's like, "Yeah, you guys were going nuts. It was so fun." And his girlfriend's like, "Yeah, those are the guys."
Yeah, look, I think people like to see people have a good time.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, me dancing at your wedding, right?
Yeah, you were hopping around for sure.
No one thought it was Cirque du Soleil.
No,
right?
but you had a great time.
Like, and some people might have been wondering why. But no one can dispute that it was a good time.
Yeah. And by the way, I think the whole lasso thing is like if you're a cowboy or like a rancher, I think they do the lasso to like control the cattle, right?
Oh no, yes.
I don't know why I'm looking at Edwin. I think it's because Edwin knows everything. I'm like, right? You're my fact checker.
Totally. Edwin, big rodeo hand. But yes, I feel like Edwin knows everything. That's why we always look there. Anyways, super last thing is, it's ironic that I use that example, and I thought that in my head. I'm like, that's the one that actually clearly has a purpose.
Yeah.
In the real world.
Right.
So I can see why they do that. And breaking the horse. I'm not going to get into the purposes of rodeo. All right. Anyways, you do you, boo, as a legendary host once said. And so if you like rodeo, have at it, Hoss. If you like Cirque du Soleil, sure. But also don't be offended by me not liking it. It's okay.
Yeah, everyone has their own interests. I didn't think I'd be interested in rodeos, but now here I am, right?
We should do a TYT outing to a rodeo.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. And I'm a little worried about how the animals are treated, but I don't want to get to that dark place right now. We'll talk about that maybe later.
We should go do all these fun things like the monster truck shows and stuff.
No, I definitely don't want to go to a monster truck show. That sounds awful.
Really? No, go to monster trucks, and then they smash the other smaller trucks.
Not for me. All right.
That's my favorite part is when they smash those smaller trucks. And the smaller truck's like, what the fuck?
All right, you ready?
Okay, all right, here we go.
Bye.
The only thing that is different between men and women when it comes to this is that men don't have another human being inside their body unless they're Jeffrey Dahmer.